Chapter 21. Dried blood on the chest, please ask for a ticket. Gollum. Sanchin swallowed hard. That, Uncle Beard. Sanchin pursed her lips and struggled for a while, and finally decided to call it the mustache-like Molly. After all, she didn't know the name of the mustache. The flying squirrel has black lines all over its head, so it doesn't matter if Mr. Lee calls it. Why do you call it too? Ma'am, please be polite. My name is Flying Squirrel, and I'm a Lieutenant Admiral of the Navy headquarters. Ah, hee, Uncle Bamboo Rat. Sanchin trimmed his long hair awkwardly. Glider. Forget it. The flying squirrel gave up, and sure enough, those who can go with Lee Kie are not normal people. Oh, Uncle Bamboo Rat, is Molly always this violent? That swordsman, he killed him with one knife, and the man whose neck was twisted by him is very aggressive. Sanchin watched Molly kill, and his heart couldn't help but be shocked. Mr. Molly is not violent, he likes eating and sleeping the most, but Mr. Molly is a great swordsman. Flying Squirrel said seriously. When he mentioned the great swordsman, there was a hint of desire in his eyes. No violence. Sanchin touched her smooth chin and looked at Molly again, only to see that he held the sword in his left hand to block the thin swordsman's domineering sword, and quickly grabbed the thin swordsman with his right hand, pointing his finger. Jian exerted force, and the man's head tilted, and Molly broke his neck at that time. Jita, the knife-dragging man who offered a reward of 550 million, died. Molly flicked his right hand, and Jita, a small figure, fell to the ground in the distance like a broken sack. Sanchin looked at the flying squirrel, his eyes full of doubts. You call this non-violence? What kind of violence is that? Gitto, the rhinoceros Quanliang roared. Brothers, come on together. Quanliang held the mace high, condensed to the point that the blue-colored armed color was domineering over the mace. Molly stared blankly at the behemoth in front of him, raised his left hand unhurriedly, and held up the scabbard. Boom, boom, boom. The wolf-tooth hammer smashed hard on Molly's scabbard. The slate under Molly's feet couldn't bear the huge impact force, and shattered into a huge gravel pit. At the moment when the mace and the scabbard collided, a violent airflow exploded, raging around, the rocks cracked, and the pirates stumbled. The smoke and dust in the gravel pit hadn't dispersed, and the other two pirate captains attacked Molly from the left and the right. Among them, Dong Kengji, who offered a reward of 500 million baileys, was a dog fruit, a person with the ability in the form of a hound. The hammer Puduo, who offered a reward of 570 million bailey, instantly covered the huge hammer with his armed color. His figure flashed to the left of Molly, and the big hammer swung round and smashed at Molly. Bang! Boom! Molly caught Dong Kengji's armed-colored claws with his right hand, lifted his left leg lightly, and hard-wired the armed-colored hammer. Ah, are you a dog? Molly turned to look at Dong Kengji on the right, and then exclaimed, it's really strange. Suddenly, a person suddenly appeared in front of Molly, and a hand was placed on Molly's chest. He grinned. Navy, don't be too arrogant. Bang! The hand that the man pressed on Molly's chest suddenly sent out a ring-shaped shock wave, pushing Molly out more than 10 meters away. I'm the one who ate the chongchong fruit. Navy, enjoy the pain of ruptured internal organs. Molly, who was slightly bent over, straightened up and patted his chest lightly like dust. Shock people, can it send shock waves? Sorry, I don't have stones yet. Hammer Puduo looked at the unscathed Molly, his hands trembling slightly. Is he a monster? Why is he okay? It's impossible. It's really a thorny monster. It's obviously covered with armament and domineering. Hound Dong Kengji shook his numb right paw, panting heavily. The rhinoceros Quanliang didn't speak, but his hands holding the mace clenched tightly. The force of the shock just now shattered his account. Molly held the knife in his left hand and looked at the odd-shaped pirates more than 10 meters away. He chuckled lightly. I understand, your abilities are quite interesting. You are both a rhinoceros and a dog. I really don't know if you will be able to do it in the future. Encounter the dragon. Then he added, okay, that's about it. the first part of the plan can't be implemented until the second part is over. Molly's voice just fell, his figure flashed, and he disappeared in place. Watching Molly disappeared, they knew that the Navy was telling the move, but they didn't know who would appear in front of him and give a fatal blow. The four of them were ready, their muscles tense. In your next life, you will be a doctor. Molly appeared beside the shocking person, and as he spoke, the person's head rolled to the ground. Under the horror of the three, Quanleong, the rhinoceros man, was directly armed for protection, and the huge sharp horn on the top of his head slammed into Li Qian. In this world, rhinos are not protected. Molly raised his sword with a white slash, covering Quanleong, the domineering rhinoceros, who was armed and domineering, and was cut in 2.5, even with the number 1 shipbuilding factory behind him. Watching Molly behead the two in an instant, the hound Dongkengji suddenly turned around and ran wildly. Don't fucking joke. The strength is not in one dimension at all. Li Mo glanced to the right, raised his saber, and stabbed it out. Stab. A spiral slash smashed the chest of the hunting dog Dongkengji, and immediately, the corpse of the hunting dog Dongkengji fell to the ground. Bang. Hammer Puduo threw away the hammer in his hand and knelt on the ground. Aren't you going to run? Li Qian asked. If you don't run away, you won't be able to run away anyway. Hammer Puduo said in a dejected manner. Molly thought for a while and said, that's all right, you just stay here and go to the cell by yourself, you know. Promote the city, I see. Advance city, I'm talking about the prison, what city are you going to? Wait. Molly said, turning around and walking towards the reef area. Hey, Uncle Hu, execute the plan. On the reef area, Flying Squirrel and Sanchin were both stunned by the scene of the battle that Li Qian had just fought. Li Qian's cry brought Sanchin back to his senses. The pirates were all dead and everyone was rescued. This guy really did it. 3001 wiped tears and ran to the port. Hey, 3000, hurry up and implement the second part of the plan. Molly was a little excited. Not only did he meet interesting capable people, but he also executed the plan perfectly. It can be seen that his plan is very perfect. Sanchin didn't answer, and ran with his head down, his waist-length hair fluttering in the wind. Hi, 3000, look at my... Boom. Sanchin slammed his head into Molly's arms, hugged Molly's waist tightly with his arms, and sobbed softly. Molly looked at Sanchian in his arms, feeling her trembling thin shoulders, and the dried blood on her chest was soaked with tears again. The harbor was full of corpses, the blood pooled and flowed into the sea, and the bloody footprints were printed when the 3000 came, Kurz Island, free. Li Mo took a deep breath, and lightly wrapped his right hand around Sanchin's shoulder. He said softly, perfect plan. Chapter 22, Come with me. Captain, this useless waste is left. I don't think it can be sold for a few dollars. Why don't you throw it away? On Kurz Island, on the beach on the east coast, several people in formal suits frowned and looked at a 3 or 4-year-old girl. The girl's hands were locked behind her back, and he collapsed on the beach, his small body rubbed into the golden sand with all his strength, and under his felt-rolled hair were a pair of extremely frightened eyes. The man who was called the captain pondered for a moment, and said, this time the goods have been sold, and there is only such a small waste left, which can't be sold for a price, and will be thrown into the sea to feed the fish later. He paused for a while, and taught his subordinates, next time, don't catch this kind of cheap waste, the nobles don't like this. Got it, boss. Well, I see. Let's go, this time let's take a few months to go to sea. After that, the captain turned to leave. Suddenly, an old lady walked out of the forest. She had a hunched back and struggled to walk. Leaning on crutches, she walked tremblingly in front of the group of people. Throw it away, why don't you sell it to me? Several people looked at each other. A poor old lady still wants to buy slaves. The captain turned around, his eyes full of impatience. How much can you pay? Here's all my savings. The old man was clutching a few wrinkled Baileys. The captain counted. 3,000 Baileys are 3,000 Baileys. I'll sell you. Let's go. The old man didn't move, and kept watching the slave boat go away, then squatted down and patted the little buttocks that was half pulled in the sand. When she patted the girl, she could feel the trembling of the girl's body, and she said with the utmost tenderness, "Little baby, they are all gone, you are safe." The girl didn't dare to move. During the 3 months she stayed on the slave ship, her little heart was hit countless times. Their despicableness and filth made her tremble all over. The old bark-like palm slowly peeled off the sand on the girl's head, revealing one of the girl's eyes and nose. The old man's eyes trembled, and fear was written in that eye. "Hey," the old man sighed, his dry palm instantly turned black, and his 2 fingers were pinched on the iron rope that locked the girl. Boom! The iron cable shattered. The girl slowly moved her thin arms, and suddenly clawed at the sand frantically, digging into the sand desperately. The old man squatted aside, quietly watching the girl get into the sand, waiting for her to go into the sand completely, and then reaching out and pulling her out. The old man held the girl in his hands, and the girl lowered her head and trembled. Long time. The girl stopped shaking, raised her head slightly, and met the old man's warm, loving eyes. "You, come with me." The old man's home was on the edge of the woods in the east of the town. A rickety old lady led a dirty little girl through the path in the woods. "Baby, what's your name?" "I don't have a name." The old man was stunned for a moment, then said with a smile, "How can a person not have a name? A name accompanies this person's life." The little girl was silent for a long time before she whispered, "You bought me with 3,000 Baileys, then I will be called 3,000 Baileys." The old man laughed and patted the girl's little head. "Sanchin Bailey's name is not very pleasant, Let's call it Bay Sanchin." "Well, then I'll be called Bay Sanchin in the future." "What do I call you?" "I want to call you, Lord." Sanchin lowered his head and hesitated to say it. The old man interrupted Sanchian, and she said, "Sanchian, you can just call me Kia Granny in the future." Day by day, Bay Sanchin has grown a lot, and Grandma Kia has also taught Sanchin a lot, taught Sanchin to exercise, and taught Sanchin the power that can crush iron pieces and turn his fingers black. No matter how you close your eyes, you can see unexpected butterflies more than 10 meters away. It wasn't until the age of 3016 that Granny Kia died, but this time the 3000 were not alone. She still had everyone in the town who treated him very well. The fat owner of the tavern will give her delicious drinks. The owner of the fish shop will accept 3,000 fish each time, including some dead fish. The clothes that the owner of the clothing store sells to her are always low price and discounted. When the Pirate Alliance came here, 3,000 tried their best to protect everyone, but each of the 8 people was much stronger than her. After being beaten, she remembered what Granny Kia had said, if she encounters danger, just eating the fruit in the box. She got the ability, but this ability is not enough for him to save people. So he can only use his ability to steal the food from the pirate warehouse, and then secretly distribute it to everyone, but the food is not enough, and everyone becomes numb, which makes Sanchin very anxious to rescue everyone. Until I met a man, I almost got killed when I saw the first face of this man, and then this man saved everyone with an incredible power. That night, the coast of Kurz Island was brightly lit, and 3 bonfires illuminated the beach. At the corner of the town, Mayor Hertz said to Sanchian, "Sanchian, aren't you going to the banquet?" Sanchin pursed his lips and whispered, "I'll go later." The mayor looked at the red-faced 3000, and then quietly sat in the middle of everyone to eat and drink, and he smiled knowingly. "Little brother Moli, come on, cheers." Do it. Li Kie swallowed the food in his mouth, and raised a glass with the villagers. Tilde, the meat you make is still delicious. I really eat the pizza in the tavern once. How can serious people eat pizza with bacon and pepper rings, right? Moli ate the meat and said casually. Little brother, you're right, how can serious people eat that stuff? The villagers agreed with Moli with a smile, and at the same time hid their hands behind their backs and threw the pizza away. An old voice sounded. Mr. Lee, thank you for saving us and liberating Curse Island. It doesn't matter, the mayor, you also invited me to drink, and we have cleared things up. Molly waved his hand and said nonchalantly. Okay, since Mr. Molly likes our sherbet, let's drink enough. Everyone, take out our sherbet. Let Brother Molly drink enough. Oh. Okay, let's have a banquet. The residents who survived the disaster drank and danced around the bonfire, releasing their repressed pain and mourning for their dead relatives. Noisy voices and frequent toasts did not delay Molly from eating and drinking. The flying squirrel returned to the warship and reported all this to the warring states marshal. It's hard work, Flying Squirrel, take Limo back to the headquarters tomorrow. Yes, Marshal. Gotcha. Mr. Molly, what an amazing person. Ah, really good wine. Lily put down the big glass and said happily. The town mayor asked with a smile, Mr. Molly likes it, so take it with you when you leave. Lee Yishi, is it really possible? Of course. You are our benefactor of Curse Island. Ha ha, I'm not a benefactor, I'm in the Navy, and I'm paid. Limo smiled and tugged at his clothes. The mayor nodded and said with a smile, Mr. Molly, would you like to hear a story? Molly was stunned. This old man is drinking beautiful. Are you going to start chattering? Lee Kie lacked interest. You can talk about it. The mayor smiled and said, it's a story about 3000. Molly instantly filled the mayor's wine glass. You are old, before you speak, moisten your throat. Then the mayor told Molly the origin of 3000 and mother-in-law Kia. Limo nodded. No wonder Sanchin was afraid when he saw the gang of traffickers, so it was. The mayor sighed and said, Mr. Lee, I hope Sanchin can follow you. Molly didn't answer, stood up and looked left and right, and found Bei Sanchin standing in the corner. He walked straight over, and when Sanchin saw Lee walking towards her, she was very nervous. She wanted to use her ability to run away through the wall, but she couldn't move her footsteps. Confused, Molly stood in front of Bei Sanchin, looking directly into Sanchin's eyes. Bei Sanchin's face was flushed red and uncomfortable. He asked hesitantly, why did you come here, you or not? 3000. Ah, Sancheni was stunned. Limo looked at Sanchian's flustered and cute appearance. He smiled and said, come with me. Chapter 23, Connecting to the Ground. On the deck of the warship, Lily lay on the deck as usual to load salted fish, and in the corner of the deck was 10 barrels of sherbet given to him by the mayor. 3000 stood at the stern of the warship, looking at the island of Kezi, which was gradually receding. Thinking back to last night, that man said the same thing as mother-in-law Kia, and was fascinated at that time. In a hurry, I agreed to this man, and I will follow him in the future. Be a navy. And the reason given by the dog man is, eat royal food, risk-free, good welfare, and leisurely. At that time, 3000 had the urge to use his ability to pull out Limo's heart. Smelly man, said something like that to a girl, and the result is that she wants to join the army with you. 3000, 3000, Molly's voice rang in Sanchin's ear. Hey, come on. 3000, who was gnashing his teeth 1 second ago, happily agreed the next second and ran over quickly. Molly, who was lying on the sun lounger, opened one eye, looked at Bei Sanchin, and said lazily, Sanchin, you will follow me from now on and become my subordinate, you know. Sanchin's eyes are curved, Limo hooked the corners of his mouth in relief, squinted his eyes and looked up and down at Bei Sanchin in a navy uniform, licked his lower lip, and said, well, pour a few glasses of wine from the barrel, I want to drink it during lunch. Quote. Sanchin. Okay, I see. Limo looked at the figure of Sanchin running to work, and pouted, damn it. It's cool to have a subordinate, and it's even better to have a beautiful subordinate. The voyage for the next 10 days was very calm, passed the windless belt smoothly, and returned to the naval headquarters. Wow, this is the Navy headquarters. Sanchin stared at the majestic Navy headquarters in amazement. Yeah, this is the Navy headquarters, and I have a room here. Having said this, Li Qian was a little proud. It's so majestic, how much will it cost to build it? Sanchen was amazed. Huh, Mo Li tilted his head, does this sound a bit familiar? As soon as the warship entered the port, Li Qi and San Qian jumped off. Mo Li walked over to Kizaru, who came to pick him up with a knife. Old Saw, are you trustworthy? You lost me just after I came to the headquarters with you. Huh, didn't you wander around when you were full, got lost, and slept on Kuzan's boat? Kizaru squinted, pouted, and said frivolously. It's okay not to mention it, this time Mo Li is angry. The prices on the island are so expensive. 10,000 Baileys are enough to eat. I still owe a lot of money. Oh, you said Guillaume, it's okay, she said please eat. Limo waved his hand. Forget it, when I get paid, I'll pay her back. By the way, this is 3,000, now it's my subordinate. Mo Li grabbed 3,000's little head to his side. Huang Yuan did not bother about the fact that Mo Li, a third-class soldier, had subordinates, but said hello to Sanchen. How are you, miss? Sanchen smiled cautiously. Hello. This very yellow uncle is so wretched, is he Li Qian's boss? Why doesn't he look like a good person? Mo Li Jun, I really don't understand Lian Xiangxiu, such a young girl is taken to be a subordinate. Huang Yuan pouted. The Navy's eyebrows jumped next to him. This word is used well, and sure enough, every leader has every kind of subordinates. At the beginning, Huang Yuan tricked Mo Li into being his subordinate. Now Li Qian caught 3,000 to be his subordinate. Having said that, Mo Li was a little happy. Old Saw, do you know what abilities Sanchen has? Huang Yuan looked at Sanqian and said, Little sister, what ability do you have? Sanchen said, I am a penetrator who ate the fruit of Chuan Chuan. Through people, it's scary. Mo Li looked at the crooked facial features on Huang Yuan's face. He said, don't lie, look at your expression. 3,000, show your ability and go through Lao Sa's body. After thinking about it, Mo Li muttered a few words while lying in Sanchen's ear. Sancheni was stunned and looked at Mo Li with big eyes in shock. Is this really good? Mo Li closed his eyes and nodded seriously. Kazuna also thought it was interesting, and stood on the spot. Okay, I'd love to see the ability of Miss Sanchen. Ha ha, Li Qian smiled and pushed Sanchen's back. Sanchen activated his ability, and the whole person passed through the body of Kizaru. Hey, that's it. Huang Yuan looked down and didn't feel anything, so what can this ability be used for? Smacking his lips, he suddenly lost interest. Huang Yuan turned his gaze to Mo Li and said, Mo Li, tomorrow the military will issue an order for your promotion. You should go back and rest today. Well, I see. Huang Yuan stuck in his pocket and asked, Mo Li, why haven't you gone back to rest? Mo Li drooped his eyelids. Have someone lead the way. Little brother Mo Li, you really don't know the way. Old Saw, the Admiralty doesn't want it anymore, let me cut it for you. It's scary, you, take Limo and this young lady to Area A2. Kizaru pointed to a navy. 3,000, let's go. Li Qian took 3,000 and left. Huang Yuan watched a few people leave, and just as he was about to turn around to leave, he realized something was wrong. Where's the old man's wallet? I remember I took it out. It's weird. Open black lens bracket Sichuan roast pork close black lens bracket. Li Qian sat on the chair with Sanqian and the navy boy who was leading the way. Mo Li and the waiter looked at each other, and there was a bit of embarrassment in the dignified atmosphere. Good guy, it's okay to eat by yourself, so I brought 2 people, the people brought by the big stomach king, can they be serious people? The waiter thought to himself. Mo Li pouted and gave Sanchen a look. Sanchen understood. Crack. A yellow purse slapped on the table. Limo looked at the waiter and lifted his chin towards his wallet. The waiter glanced at the wallet, turned and left. Last time it was Lieutenant General Peach Rabbit who settled the bill for you. This time it was a beautiful girl who took the money, tisk tisk. After eating and drinking, Limo finally returned to his small courtyard. Push the door in and look at the spotless room, typical Japanese-style tatami and tea table. Although I don't like it very much, I still need a bicycle for the house divided by the unit. 3,000, we will live here in the future. Lee Kie said to the 3,000 next to him. Well, okay. Sanchin is very happy, here is the beginning of a new life. Molly took off his shoes, threw them at the entrance, and walked into the living room. Sanchin squatted down silently and placed Molly's shoes in an orderly manner without caring or seeming unfamiliar. Around the house, there are 2 rooms, a study, a living room, a bathroom, and a small kitchen. Pulled off the ribbon on his wrist, tied his long silver hair into a ponytail, wiped the vase in the living room, and wiped the kitchen stove that had never been used once. Sanchin was very excited. Such a beautiful house must be cleaned. Bro. Molly looked at the busy figure running around. He smacked his lips. 3,000, 2 rooms, which one do you want? Sanchin wiped the sweat on his forehead and said quickly, I don't like tatami mats very much, I want to sleep more. Lee Kie didn't even look at Sanchin's hopeful eyes on the pair of beds. He said directly, okay. You just arrived in the Navy, and you are not used to everything. You have to work hard to integrate into this place, first connect to the ground, and sleep on tatami. 3,000. Chapter 24. Purple Cool Uncle. Navy Headquarters, Military Reception. The Navy, who was in charge of registration, glanced at the lazy Molly and Sanchian. The women were okay, but the men were average. Admiral Kazuna personally urges Mr. Molly to be promoted to Colonel of the Navy Headquarters. This is your military badge and cape. Oh, okay, thank you. Lee Mo said. Lee Kie didn't move, and Sanchin on the side stepped forward and hugged the formal suit and cape on the table in his arms. The Navy nodded, took out a file bag, and said, Molly, is he good at swordsmanship? Lee Mo nodded. Well, I know a little bit of family swordsmanship. Knife technique. Isn't that just swordsmanship? The Navy shook his head, swiped a few strokes on the document, and put it back into the document bag. What about you? The sea soldier looked at Sanchin. Sanchin thought for a while. There is a little bit of physical art, and it is a capable person. Well, what ability? The ability to penetrate walls, penetrate the body, all kinds of penetration. Okay. The Navy was stunned for a moment, and immediately filled out another document and put it into the bag. According to General Huang Yuan's instructions, the 2 military posts have been completed. Please continue to work hard in the future, Colonel Molly, and Sao Bei Sanchin. The Navy stood up and saluted the 2. Molly and Sanchian left. After the Navy sat down, he pouted. Hey, it's a related household. One can master swordsmanship, one can pass through walls, and he can become the direct subordinate of a general. He thinks he is the great swordsman. Under the cover of the Navy and the government, everyone only knows that there is a great swordsman in the Navy, but they don't know who the great swordsman is. Only the top Navy and the 5 old stars knew Lee Mo's true strength. It was also the instructions of the 5 old stars to conceal that Molly was a great swordsman. First, they couldn't find out the origin of Molly's life experience, so they didn't believe that Molly would be loyal to ZF and the Navy. Second, a top-notch combat power like Daijinhao can become a target on the bright side. It is better to hide it, and it can also play a deterrent effect. 3,000, have you seen it? I've been promoted, Molly said to Sanchin earnestly. Sanchin didn't understand what Molly meant. So what? Wait a while to get the salary, please eat meatballs, Lee said. Sanchin followed behind Molly, holding Molly's clothes and cloak, listening to Molly's incoherent words. Bang! Sanchin rubbed his forehead, stepped in front of Molly in 2 steps, and glared at Molly. Why did you stop suddenly? Lee Mo mechanically bowed his head with confusion in his eyes. Where do you get your salary? 3,000 eyebrows twitched. you talk about the high salary and good treatment every day, and you haven't received any salary yet. Limo nodded. Actually, I also heard what Lao Sa said, and I just went to work for a month. At this moment, the thin 3000 wanted to go back to Kezi Island, and she felt a little homesick. Sanchin, who didn't know how to complain, sighed, let's go, find someone to ask. Oh, Molly obediently agreed, not knowing why, he was a little afraid of the 3000 in this state. Sanchin just turned around and turned back, and said viciously, you'd better follow me, I won't look for you if you get lost again. Don't be kidding, this is a cramped place, so I can get lost. Molly denied that he could get lost in Marinfando. I don't know who kept saying that he would take him to the military headquarters, but the result was a straight 10-minute journey and 2 hours of twisting and turning. Ha ha. Sanchin laughed expressionlessly, grabbed Molly's hilt and walked forward. Molly quickly grabbed the scabbard and was pulled by Sanchin and walked forward. Molly was annoyed. Why the hell are you walking the dog here? In the office of the Warring States Marshal, the Warring States looked at Zephyr sitting on the sofa and hesitated several times. Ha ha, Lord Warring States, did you call this old man just to drink tea? Zephyr put down the teacup and smiled while looking at Warring States. ZFA, you think about it again, we are not young anymore. Warring States said to ZFA beside him with a look of embarrassment. Crack. Zephyr lifted the huge Halushi mechanical arm, and then laughed. Mr. Warring States, are you old enough? Warring States shook his head and said, Zephyr, the Navy needs you to train more outstanding talents. Warring States, if I really want to be an instructor, what is this thing for? Zephyr said it lifted the bulky robotic arm again. Hey Tilda. Seeing that the old friend had made up his mind, all the persuasion of the Warring States period turned into a sigh. Okay, Lord Warring States, I'm leaving, and the 5 old stars also agreed to the establishment of the pirate guerrilla. That's it, at least I'm still in the Navy, right? After Zephyr finished speaking, he opened the door and walked out. Warring States watched ZFA go away. He knew the pain in his old friend's heart. He was kind to the pirates and did not kill the general, but the pirates destroyed the family. Do not kill, not just belief or irony. 3000, I'm hungry. Following behind 3000, Li Kie, who was clutching the scabbard, began to shout hungry. Lao Sa's money has been eaten up by you for one breakfast. How dare you cry out for hunger? Endure it. Sanchin was immediately angry. As a human, he ate 20 caddies of fried rice, 4 glasses of juice, and 15 bacon omelets. Wouldn't Molly feel ashamed? Molly pouted. He didn't understand why yesterday she was a beautiful and gentle girl, but today she has become a wild cat with frizzy fur. Women are really scary. Hearing the silence behind him, Sanchin sighed and turned around and said, Okay, let's find someone to ask where to get the salary. After you get the salary, I'll take you to dinner. Can you bear it? Okay. Molly smiled. It was an illusion just now. The 3000 has not changed, it is still gentle. After turning a corner, the two came to the center street. Wow! Molly's eyes lit up. 3001 stunned. What is he doing? 3000. Look, that purple old man is so cool. Molly pointed at the fork next to him, swaying out of Zephyr. Huh. Sanchin looked over and saw a tall old man with purple hair and a robotic arm in his right hand. 3000 winks, cool. Molly and Sanchin looked at Zephyr, and Zephyr also noticed the two when he came over. Zephyr looked at the strange postures of the two, pondered for a moment, pointed at Li Qian, and asked Sanchin, is he Lu Kai? Sanchin was startled, so powerful, you can see it all. But Li Qian didn't care, he was staring at Zephyr's mechanical arm curiously. After researching for a while, Limo raised his head and asked, Uncle Cool. Can your robotic arm fire lasers? Zephyr was stunned for a moment, then shook his head. It can't fire lasers, but it can fire cannonballs and explode. Wow, that's cool enough. Molly looked at the robotic arm with metallic luster, and was amazed. Uncle, I'm sorry, he's ill, we'll go now. Sanchin was embarrassed to death, a big fool of 1.9 meters, squatting next to someone's arm, touching and rubbing. Ha ha, are you Limo? Zephyr recognized Mo Li. Uncle Cool, do you know me? Li Kie asked suspiciously. Of course, a great swordsman in the Navy. Mo Li waved his hand. I'm a swordsman, not a big swordsman. Zephyr was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, then, swordsman, would you like to have a drink together? Li Yi was overjoyed, he was already hungry. Please. Chapter 25, The Feast of Horrors. A luxury-looking restaurant in Marin Vando, Zephyr brought Mo Li and Sanchin in. Since little brother Mo Li is hungry, let's eat and order whatever you want. Mo Li gritted his teeth. Really? 3,000. Hurry up, let's cook first. Mo Li cheered, dragged 3,000 and ran to the large sofa area. Zephyr smiled and took out the toddler phone bug. Blue blue, blue blue. Kacha. Teacher Zephyr, may I ask, what's the matter with you? Aang, you and Bins came to the restaurant for dinner, don't you want to meet the great swordsman? He's here. He's in the restaurant, I'll go right over. Kacha. Zephyr looked at the sleeping phone bug and said, bring Bins here. Hey, Rash. Zephyr sat opposite Mo Li, the rimless glasses set off his slightly gentle face, of course, if there was no shredder on the ground. Limo looked at the menu handed over by the waiter, and muttered to Sanchin for a while, then pointed to a few salads and other vegetables. Don't want any of these. Zephyr smiled reassuringly, this kid wanted to save the old man money, and immediately said, little brother, no need. Other dishes come 2 rounds first, ice cream and desserts don't come first, taking up space. Squeak. Oh roar, Uncle Cool, your mechanical armor is ringing. Is it time to oil it? Mo Li curiously looked at the mechanical arm that made the sound of mechanical collision. It's okay. Oh, waiter, 2 barrels of wine. Squeak. Is there really no need to apply oil? Li Kie asked worriedly. It's all right. Teacher Zephyr, you are here too. Suddenly, 2 figures entered the dining room. Flying Squirrel and Stoloberg came over quickly, and said with respect, Mr. Zephyr, will you come in? It's you, let's have dinner together. Okay. Mo Li, who was waiting to serve the food, saw the Flying Squirrel and said hello, Uncle Beard. The Flying Squirrel has adapted to this title, after all, it has been called on the boat for more than 10 days. Mr. Mo Li, no, Colonel Mo Li. The Flying Squirrel pointed to the burning mountain beside him. Colonel Mo Li, let me introduce you, this is Lieutenant General Stoloberg. Hello, Skull. Mo Li raised his hand and greeted with a smile. Cough. Flying Squirrel held back a wild laugh, calmly whispering. Lieutenant General Stoloberg, forgive me, Mr. Lim likes to joke very much. It's all right, after all, I look different from ordinary people, I've caused you trouble. Said these words with no expression, bowed slightly to Zephyr, and sat down. Li Qian leaned closer to San Qian and whispered, San Qian, the hat on his head won't fall off. Sanchin had black lines all over his head, lowered his head, and didn't want to pay attention to him. I have already heard from General Kizaru. Mr. Mo Li's strength and character will not be angry. Stoloberg was very embarrassed to see Sanchin, so he explained. Uncle Skull is very bold, let's have a few drinks later, Uncle Cool treats you. Li Mo pointed to Zephyr. The Flying Squirrel and Stoloberg looked at Zephyr, who was expressionless, at the same time, and the same thoughts rose in their hearts. Why is Teacher Zephyr's nickname, Cool? The dishes came quickly and filled the entire table, when Ain also came. Mr. Zephyr, Senior Flying Squirrel, Senior Brother Stolberry. Ain greeted one by one. Zephyr sighed slightly, did Bins really have no luck? This is the great swordsman, Mo Li. Zephyr pointed at Mo Li and said. Ain's first reaction when he looked at Mo Li was that he was very young, and his second reaction was that he didn't have the temperament of a great swordsman at all. Whose great swordsman could eat a whole big steak in one bite? However, Ain still greeted politely. Mr. Lee, I have long admired the name. Molly's mouth was full of food, looking at Ain hesitating. Sanchin sighed. Hello, Miss Ain. Lee said, hello, please take a seat and eat first. Hey, is that so? Ain looked at Sanchian in amazement, and then at Molly. Molly nodded. After the second round of the dishes, Limo finally had almost eaten, and drank a lot of wine, so he felt a little drunk. Ain finally couldn't help but ask, excuse me, how did Mr. Molly become a great swordsman? Ain is also a swordsman, and he is very longing for the great swordsman. As soon as these words came out, not only Ain himself was waiting for Molly's answer, but even Flying Squirrel and Stoloberg looked at Molly expectantly. Flying Squirrel has also become a swordsman for many years. Although his swordsmanship is superb, his swordsmanship is always worse than that of top swordsmen. Needless to say, Stoloberg is a veteran lieutenant general of the headquarters, a swordsman with 2 swords, and a major general who was under the command of Kizaru when he was a major general. Go. Ha, I don't know what a swordsman is, I am just an ordinary swordsman. After drinking a large glass of wine, Li Qia's eyes were a little dazed. The swordsman. What is the swordsman? The flying squirrel asked. Cluck cluck. Another cup. Hiccup. A swordsman is a swordsman, a swordsman is a swordsman, and a swordsman is a swordsman. Molly said, slightly drunk. Several people looked at each other, then shook their heads. Looking at their appearance, Li Qie smiled. I don't understand, haha. It doesn't matter, I'll tell you. After speaking, Molly stood up staggeringly and drew out the saber from his waist. Look, this is the knife. Not only the few people who were eating together looked at Molly, but everyone in the restaurant looked at Molly. Everyone has a question, what is he doing? Lily picked up a bottle of wine, clucked, and drank it in one breath. Ha. I started practicing the sword at the age of 7, no matter if it's windy or rainy, whether I'm sick or have a fever, I never stop swinging the sword 1,000 times a day. In the beginning, I didn't want to. It's the fucking 21st century. Airplanes and missiles are flying all over the sky. Dad even let me practice knives. Is there any use for chicken feathers? Seeing that Molly started talking nonsense, a few of them smiled wryly. Are they drunk? What plane are you talking about? Molly continued. Later I fell in love with knives. Every time I slashed, I only had knives in my heart. My heart was empty, my mind was empty, and I didn't think about anything. Later, I discovered that I can cut anything I can cut, mountains, rivers, diamonds, I can cut it off. Don't you believe it? It doesn't matter, I'll cut it down for you to see. Cut it for us. The people in the restaurant didn't know what he was going to do, but Zepha, Flying Squirrel and Stoloberg were nervous. He was a great swordsman, and he swung a sword, it wasn't a joke. Mr. Molly, no need, we believe it. Flying Squirrel immediately stepped forward to help Molly. It's okay, look at me. Molly blocked the Flying Squirrel's hand with his left hand, and swung the knife with his right hand. The scabbard was pressed down, a storm broke out in the dining room, and a white slash slashed out from the tip of Molly's knife. Boom! I saw a slash from the central block of Marin Fando, flying directly to the port, splitting the 2 large warships with undiminished power, cutting the sea and flying away. Woo tilde 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 woo tilde tilde tilde. The Marin Vando alarm goes off. In the ruined restaurant, Sanchin hid in the corner, Zepha protected Ain, who was the weakest, while Flying Squirrel and Stolberry supported the beam of the restaurant that had been split in half. As for the person who smashed into the restaurant, Limo was lying on the ground. Dad, Mom, I am homesick. Ha ha. Chapter 26, Establishment of a Branch. Ha ha. Lieutenant Li was sleeping soundly in the Warring States office, and Lieutenant General He put a pillow under his head. Sengoku looked gloomy and looked around the office. When was the last time Marin Vando raised the alarm? The flying squirrel was silent with the handle of the knife in his left hand, and Stoloberg stood at the door of the office with his eyes narrowed. Warring States turned his attention to Kizaru reading the newspaper with Erlang's legs crossed. Pelusolino. Ah, it seems that the Golden Lion Shiji invaded, Kizaru said lightly. Boom. Warring States rushed over to the table. You just know, Marin Fando's alarm goes off once is enough. After talking about the Warring States period, he looked at the flying squirrel and Stolberry. Where's Zepha? Teacher Zepha has set sail. Flying squirrel said. Bastard Zepha. The Warring States roared again. Ah, what's the name of a ghost? Let's not let people sleep. After muttering, Limo turned sideways and continued to sleep. Warring States turned even darker, pointed at Moli and asked angrily, what is he doing? Lieutenant General Crane hugged his shoulders and said, if you sleep in one position, you will be tired. Kizaru took over, so change your posture. Bang. Ba tilde ba tilde. The sound of Warring States patting the table made the little white sheep jump up in fright, and the round sheep's eyes looked innocently at Warring States. The office fell into silence again. No one would have thought that Moli was so drunk that he not only destroyed the restaurant but also split two warships. Warring States looked at the people in the office. It had nothing to do with the two lieutenant generals who were hanging up high, the Japanese ape who was still reading the newspaper like no one else, the female soldier hiding behind the yellow monkey. He looked at Moli and smiled. And that Moli who was sleeping soundly. Warring States rubbed his forehead helplessly. What kind of people are these people? It really doesn't let people rest. Let's go. Pelusolino will be responsible for the compensation for the restaurant, and the repair department of the square will pay. Huang Yuan was not happy, pouted and said, why, Mr. Warring States, this is none of my business. Shut up, Pelusolino, he's your immediate subordinate, take me away. The angry Mr. Warring States is really scary. 3000. Drag the troublemaker away. After the words fell, Kizaru got up and left. Sanchin quickly walked to Moli's side and saw Moli was sleeping soundly, smacking his lips, and he didn't get angry. Why should I follow you? He grabbed Moli's back collar, dragged him out of the office, and followed Kyabu. To drag, the big leaders let drag, they must drag. When Kizaru left, the flying squirrel and Stoloberg also left. Lieutenant General Crane stood in the corridor, looking at Li Moli, who was being dragged away, and then looking at the huge crack running through the square of the Navy headquarters, hugging his shoulders. Shaking his head, he said, young people today are amazing. Warring States also came out and stood beside Lieutenant General He. He said, the 5 old stars are starting to want people. Isn't it, Li? Don't you mean that there is no thorough investigation? Lieutenant General He asked. Sengoku put his hands in his pockets and stared blankly at the huge crack in the square. Moli's combat power is what they need. The strength of Tautu and T-Dolphin can't make them feel at ease. After hearing the words, Lieutenant General He thought for a long time, and she said, let Moli go to the East China Sea to avoid it. You can take the yellow monkey to Wu Laoxing's side, and Moli can't stay in Marijoa. Warring States was silent, watching the noise of the square and the port quietly. Lily stretched comfortably while lying on the tatami. You're awake, let's have a cup of tea. Huang Yuan pushed the teacup forward and stopped just in front of Moli. Thank you. Li Qiye held up the teacup sleepily and took a sip, moistening his thirsty throat. Where is this? Li Qi asked. This is my small courtyard. Huang Yuan said with a smile. Limo sat up and saw Sanchin sitting on the side with his little face pulled. He asked, Sanchin, why are we here? Sanchin rolled his eyes at him and turned his head to ignore Moli. Moli scratched his head. What happened again? Moli, do you really not remember? Huang Yuan asked with a smile. I know what. Huang Yuan laughed without saying a word. Sanchin suddenly turned his head, cut down the restaurant for Moli's drunkenness, and also opened a knife at Marinfando Square. Why did the two warships become fragments? Said it again and again. Moli opened his mouth in surprise and looked at Kizaru, who nodded. It took a long time to recover, and he asked hesitantly, "Old Saw, how much does this cost?" "You don't need to lose money, but you can't stay in the headquarters anymore. I have arranged a job for you," Huang Yuan said. Huh. Moli was stunned. The news was like a bolt from the blue. He had just returned from the sea for 2 days. Someone invited him to have a drink. After drinking it, he became crazy, so he arranged to go out again. Isn't this an old scumbag? Kizaru looked at the sullen Moli, pouted and said, "It's easy, don't catch pirates." Huh, really? Li Qiye asked. Well, you go to Merdeffa Island in the East China Sea to build a naval base, and the headquarters allocates funds. You identify the base director, Kizaru said with a smile. Moli thought about it for a long time and asked, "Just take the money to open a branch?" About the same. Huang Yuan didn't know what the branch office meant, but he didn't care how Moli understood it. Anyway, the meaning of warring states was to let him take the money to go out and play for a while, and hide from the sight of Mary Joa. Moli licked his lips, thinking in his heart, if he became the general manager of the branch, wouldn't it be the sky in the sky? Eat how you want, sleep when you want. Well, yes, Li Mo gave a thumbs up. Well, then you can leave tomorrow. The warship is ready, the colonel's troop has been mobilized, let's go after a sleep tonight. There was no change in Kizaru's tone. A state of protection, trying not to let Moli come into contact with the filth of the world. Li Qiye shrugged, his body softened and he lay down again. Huang Yuan was stunned for a moment, then turned his head and asked Sanchin, "Why did he lie down again? Aren't you leaving?" Sanchin looked up outside the room and said softly, "It's getting dark." "Yeah, it's getting dark. You should go back to rest early." Kizaru nodded. "You misunderstood. I mean, it's getting dark, we haven't had dinner yet," Sanchin said as a matter of course. Huang Yuan wondered, "So, what does it have to do with this old man?" Li Mo said, "We don't want to eat in the cafeteria, but we have no money." 3,000 nodded in agreement. Huang Yuan understood, this is to eat the old man. "Let's go, the old man treats you to a good meal as a farewell." Hee, how much money can 2 children eat? Chapter 27. I teach you to fish. The warship sailed steadily in the calm and windless belt, and Li Mo was still lying on top of his big baby, with the sun umbrella propped up. Before taking a nap, he drank a cup of 3000 brand's special cold drink, which was very good. After a few days of sailing, the 3000 who had nothing to do wandered around in the canteen of the warship, and even unlocked the ability to make cold drinks, and it was unexpectedly delicious. "Moli, it's so boring, there's no wind here." Sanchian sat on the sun lounger at Moli's feet and handed the juice to Moli, who was like a salted fish. "Yeah, there's no wind here. I lived here for many days," Li said after taking a sip of the cold drink. "Yourself?" Sanchin asked. "Yeah, myself, on a small island. I didn't have to eat at first, and then I learned to fish. Suddenly, I will remember when I first came to this world, and there is still a little nostalgia." "Hey, there's nothing to do anyway. I'll teach you how to fish," Moli suddenly said. 3001 stunned, "Teach yourself to fish?" After Granny Cha passed away, she made a living by fishing. Does she need your teaching? But looking at Moli's excited appearance, Sanchin didn't want to refute Moli's interest, and immediately said, "Okay, you teach me how to fish." "Well, look it up. In fact, fishing is very simple, you must first have bait." 3000 nodded, fishing really needed bait, and then watched Moli wait for him to popularize fishing rods, lines and fishing methods. But before Moli spread the knowledge, he watched him take off his clothes. The two were sitting on a sun lounger. Moli was lying down, and Sanchian was sitting at Mo-Li's feet, close to his calf. When Mo-Li sat up and took off his clothes, the distance between the two of them was only 30 centimeters away from each other. Hey, why did you take off your clothes all of a sudden? Sanchin blushed, and his fair oval face turned into a little sun. Oh, it's troublesome to get your clothes wet, so you might as well just take them off and put them on after you've caught the fish. The shirt has been taken off during the talk, quack. Trouser belt. Ah, don't. Please keep your last privacy. Seeing Mo-Li who only had boxer pants left, Sanchin quickly covered his face and ran to the mast where he turned his back and stood. Are you a fool? Mo-Li pouted as he looked at the startled 3000. Hey, are you still learning how to fish? Li Mo, who walked to the side of the boat with a saber, looked back and saw that Sanchin was still hanging around the mast, and he was directly unhappy. You said you wanted to learn it. Can learn. Ah, good. Sanchin lowered his head, his face flushed. Ah, that big one. The warship will stop, I want to go fishing. Lieutenant Li shouted to a lieutenant on the deck. Lieutenant Johnson is the chief mate assigned to Mo-Li in the headquarters, that is, Mo-Li's adjutant is also the navigator of the ship. Johnson said with some embarrassment, Colonel Li, are you fishing here? Johnson is all right, the windless zone is full of sea kings, where did the fish come from? Yes, it's here. But, Johnson was a little embarrassed. As the top commander of this warship, Li Qiye had to listen to his words, but is it really good to fish on the lair of the sea kings in the windless belt? Momo Chi, hurry up. Li Mo was a little impatient. Yes. The warship stopped, all the Navy knew that the airborne colonel was going to fish in the windless belt, and everyone gathered on the deck to watch how Li Qiye was going to die. Mo-Li jumped with the knife, landed steadily on the sea, and then ran on the sea. Ah, my God. Look, Colonel Mo-Li is running on the sea. Oh. Sanchin was also surprised that this guy was running on the sea. After running for a few hundred meters, Mo-Li let out a little bit of energy and entered the sea, just like when he first came to this world, soaking in the sea and using himself as bait to fish. But today's Neptune didn't give Mo-Li face. 10 minutes passed, and he still hasn't come. Huh, where did the sea beast go? He fell asleep. Mo-Li scratched his head, and a savage stabbed him down. If you don't come out, I'll go find you. One of the Navy on the ship said, it's sinking. Yeah, it's sinking. Another Navy echoed. Sir, what are we going to do? Let's go back. Ha ha. The Navy was joking heartlessly, but the 3000 were full of black lines. The bait this fool said was not himself, right? Less than 2 minutes later. Bang! Mo-Li broke out of the water and flew into the sky. Marines. Oh, it's so high. Immediately after. Boom! A serpentine sea king with a huge dorsal fin broke through the sea, only half of its body was tens of meters long, and its bloody mouth shot straight into the air. Oh, what the hell? N. 3000 turned back and glared at the Navy. Hey. You are enough. Li Mo continued to rise, but the Neptunes fell. In the air, Li Qiye held the scabbard and swung it out. Same as the one who would fish, the same posture, the same severance. Ah, this is fishing. Colonel Mo-Li has a monster-like combat power, so powerful. This kind of strength, my God. Mo-Li landed on half of the Sea King's corpse, looked at it, don't want the head, the rest can be eaten. Drag the tail and run to the warship. Hey, it's dinner. At this time, Johnson reacted. The bloody smell of beheading the Sea Kings will attract more Sea Kings. Colonel Li is fine, but the seamen of this ship are dangerous. Johnson shouted into the cockpit, helmsman. Get off the boat. The boat left, and Mo-Li was stunned. They don't like eating Sea Kings. The boat ran in front, and Mo-Li chased after him. The blood spilled by the Sea Kings dragged by Mo-Li attracted the 4 Sea Kings to chase after Mo-Li's ass. Li Mo also felt it, and looked back at 2 big yellow frogs, a zebra, and a big fish, chasing after him frantically. What are you doing? I have enough to eat. With the knife in his left hand, he moved towards the Sea Kings chasing behind, and slashed down with one knife, and the half-moon-shaped white slash cut through the sea. 4 Sea Kings, pawn. Li Qian didn't even look at it. His left leg exerted a little force, his right hand grabbed the Sea King, and his left hand held a knife, and jumped to the deck of the warship. Bang! Half of the Sea Kings were thrown on the deck, and Mo Li shouted, "Cook! Eat sea beast meatball fried rice at night." Although the soldiers were surprised by Li's strength, they were not crazy about it. After all, they were sailors from the Navy headquarters who had seen the world. After sailing for a few more days, Li Qian didn't make any maddening moves. Johnson walked to Mo Li's sun lounger and made a serious report. "Colonel Mo Li, Benos Island is ahead, we need to go to the island for supplies." Ha ha, ha ha. Johnson's serious expression instantly collapsed. "Do we want to wake up Colonel Mo Li?" At this time, 3000 came out of the cabin and said, "Go to the island for supplies." "Yes," Johnson saluted. Although Johnson is a lieutenant and 3000 is a sergeant, no one on this warship knows that all the soldiers listen to Mo Li, and Li Qian listens to 3000. Benos Island is a ring-shaped volcanic island. There is a small town at the foot of the volcano, called Benos Town. A few children were squatting and playing beside the stone piles in the port. When they saw the warship approaching, they were stunned and ran away quickly. "The Navy is here! The Navy is here!" The townspeople opened their doors one after another and came out, watching the warship curiously around the port. A villager walked up to the gray-bearded mayor in front and whispered, "Mayor Kunu, is the Navy here to investigate the unprovoked disappearance of Murdefa Island?" The mayor of Kunu bowed his body and shook his head slightly, and said, "I don't know, let's take a look." Chapter 28, Hometown Gone. When the warship docked, the sailors methodically dropped the line to tie the anchor, took the ladder to disembark, and the orderly cart made purchases. "Miss Sanchin, what about Colonel Mo Li?" "Except for the soldiers guarding the ship, everyone else disembarked, so we can't leave the captain behind to guard the ship with the soldiers." Sanchin looked at Mo Li, who was still slumbering, and helped his forehead helplessly. "How come this guy has been eating or sleeping since he went to sea?" "Hey, Mo Li, let's get off the boat and play." Sanchin pushed Mo Li. "Ha ha. Mo Li, let's go to the island for dinner." Tilda ha ha. With a lazy snort, his body squirmed and continued to sleep. "Forget it, what about love? You guys, take Lillian and the sun loungers off the boat together," Sanchin said to several soldiers. Just like that, Lili was lying on the sun lounger, covered with the cloak of justice, and was carried off the boat as if he was paralyzed. "Put it over here, the parasols are up," 3000 commanded, and lifted Limo to a large flat boulder by the port, and the parasol was stuck in the crack of the stone. Is this okay?" Johnson's face was a little weird. "It would not be good to leave the captain here." "No problem, when we finish supplying, come back and pick him up." Sanchin waved his hand and said indifferently, "Pick up." Johnson was stunned for a while, so in the end, he still left Colonel Mo Li here. "Hello, Navy Lord." Mayor Kunu bowed slightly, said with a smile, "You are the mayor, let's come here for supplies and rest." Sanchin said, "Ha ha. Well, there has been no navy coming to this island for a long time." Mayor Kunu smiled and pointed to the town behind him. "Please go ahead, there is plenty of food in the town." Johnson nodded. The East China Sea is indeed a sea of peace. The town is very peaceful, and the townspeople are also full of smiles. "You go shopping." The cooks went shopping here, and Johnson and Sanchin were invited to be guests at the mayor's house. Johnson came from a great route, and his hometown has been oppressed and looted by pirates for a long time. In contrast, the peaceful and warm Benos Island is a paradise on earth. "Mayor, the town is very peaceful, aren't there any pirates nearby?" Johnson asked. "Ha ha, this sea area is very peaceful." Captain Kunu waved his hand with a smile. Johnson and the mayor had a chat. Sanchin sat by the window and looked at the busy townspeople outside the window with one hand on his chin. He couldn't help but think of everyone in Kezi Island. Molly had already dealt with all the pirates. Now everyone should be like the people on this island. Live a peaceful life. Suddenly, a meteor flashed in the distant sky with a trail, flew into the clouds and disappeared. Meteor. The meteor didn't fall. Why did it fly in the opposite direction and fly into the sky? Mr. Mayor, do all the meteors in the East China Sea fly backwards? Sanchin turned to ask Mayor Kunu. Don't you know? I thought you were here just for that matter. Mayor Kunu wondered. Johnson and Sanchin looked at each other. What is that? Looking at the suspicious eyes of the two, Mayor Kunu knew that they were just passing navies and didn't know about it. The mayor sighed and said, actually, something like this happened more than 10 years ago. Some islands disappeared inexplicably, and some people once witnessed the sea flying into the sky. Seawater flying to the sky. Waterspout? Sanchin asked. No, the seawater is like being wrapped in something, and it flies straight into the sky. The mayor said. It's amazing, the island has disappeared, and the sea can still fly. Sanchin was amazed. Yeah, I didn't expect such a thing to happen in the East China Sea. Johnson nodded. I have forgotten what happened more than 10 years ago, but recently, 2 islands have disappeared, and many boulders will fly into the sky. Mayor Kunu shook his head and said. I really don't know when this island will suddenly disappear. We are in danger. Mayor Kunu sighed. A small island that neither the Navy nor the pirates will pay attention to. Sometimes it is not a good thing, and no one knows when it suddenly disappears. Island disappeared recently? Sanchin asked. Yes, the old man's son went out to fish and told me after he came back that one is a small desert island and the other is Medfa Island. 3000 blinks, Murderfar Island, so familiar, Murderfar. Sanchin was stunned, and looked at Johnson. Damn. Home is gone. Murdefa Island was the purpose of Molly and Sanchin coming to the East China Sea. They wanted to build a naval base. After wandering at sea for more than 10 days, they were almost there, and the island was gone. At this moment, there was a roaring sound from the whole island began to tremble, and a look of horror appeared in the eyes of several people. Isn't it so unlucky? Just now I was still worried about when this island would suddenly disappear, and now it will be fulfilled. Sanchin opened the window and appeared on the street in a flash. At this time, the street was full of people, including the townspeople and the Navy who purchased. Everyone panicked and didn't know what happened. The shaking of the island did not last long before it stopped. The mayor said calmly, "It's okay, it should be the instability of the volcano and the tremors. They don't know about 3000, but the townspeople know that this volcano has not erupted for decades. How come there are signs of activity today?" But compared to the terrible incident of the disappearance of the island, the townspeople were more willing to believe the mayor's apparently soothing explanation. "Miss Sanchin, look there." Sanchin looked in the direction Johnson pointed, and his mouth widened in surprise. A large amount of seawater flew into the sky in blocks, and countless boulders also slowly flew into the sky. "It's so spectacular. Is this what the mayor said? It's unbelievable," Sanchin exclaimed. Johnson was anxious, pointed to a big rock very close to the few people and said loudly, "Miss Sanchin, look at that rock where Colonel Molly slept." Ha! Sanchin hurriedly looked over. The boulder was already in the sky, and Molly could not be seen from below, only the red and blue sunshade was swaying left and right under the blowing air. "Ah, it's really inexorable. Ah, Colonel Molly." The Navy's eyes popped and their mouths widened. Compared to the panic of 3000, Johnson deserves to be a lieutenant from the headquarters, but at this time he is much calmer. "Miss Sanchin, before the voyage, didn't General Huang Yuan give you a phone number? Contact General Huang Yuan quickly." "Oh," Sanchin cried as he watched the boulder carry Li Mo into the clouds and disappeared. Blue blue, blue blue. Kacha. The phone bug instantly imitated Kazaru's appearance, wearing sunglasses, squinting eyes, and turning his mouth into an anti-human appearance. Mosesmore. Old saw. Mowgli is gone. Sanchin interrupted Kizaru's lazy voice. It's gone. That's a pity. So, the sea is very scary. With the strength of little brother Mowgli, it's gone if you don't. 3,000 black lines all over his head. Did he misunderstand something? No, I mean, Mowgli flew into the sky. Sanchin told Kizaru what the mayor said and what happened just now. The yellow monkey on the other side of the phone worm was silent for a while and said, "Oh, this kind of thing happened. The old man may need a few days in the past now. It's too late. I'll ask Smog, who is stationed in Rog Town, to come and have a look." Chapter 29. Can this world get better? In the clouds above the East China Sea, there is a group of floating islands composed of a dozen islands. A dozen islands surround a large island, and there is a palace on the island. In the palace, puff, 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 puff. A man with a face that seemed to have brushed white, stepped on a series of farts under his feet, and walked to a blond man with a cigar and a rudder on his head. That man is the legendary great pirate, the Golden Lion Shiki. The Golden Lion hugged his shoulders and clenched his teeth. After a while, he finally broke out, and he shouted, "Can't you solve the sound of your footsteps, Dr. Indy?" Puff, puff, puff. Along with the sound of footsteps, Indigo danced to the Golden Lion. Huh, the Golden Lion stared blankly at Indigo dancing a funny dance like a clown. Golden Lion frowned. "What the hell are you trying to say?" "There's something I want you to look at." The Golden Lion's eyes burst, and he shouted in surprise, "So you can talk?" Pop, 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 pop. A gorilla in pink clapped and smirked. The Golden Lion turned his head suddenly. "Old Mom." Indigo instantly gave the Golden Lion a scowl. "It looks like an orangutan." "Ah, orangutan." The Golden Lion turned his head and asked Brother Indy, "What do you want to show me?" Puff, puff, puff. Indigo turned around and ran away with a strange sound. "Huh, run away," the Golden Lion said with one eye rolled away. Roar, roar, roar. The gorilla held his head, jumped up and down, and let out a roaring roar. After a while, Indigo carried a large iron cage and threw it on the ground with a bang. "This is the latest experiment." "Ah, what is this?" asked the Golden Lion, looking at a puppet with thin arms and thin legs and a black watermelon head. "This is my latest experiment. I ate the nighthawk fruit to a doll." Indigo's eyes lit up as he introduced. Ding, ding, ding. The Golden Lion walked over and circled around the iron cage a few times before asking, "Brother Indy, what's the use of him? He can talk." "Ah, that's awesome." The Golden Lion and Indigo stared at the watermelon head puppet, and the atmosphere was very awkward for a time. A group of islands in the air, an island on the periphery. Aha. Limo stretched and yawned. Limo looked around and scratched his head. Huh. Where is this? Sanchin was not there, neither was the warship, so I looked around. Have a good night's sleep, God. Smacking his lips, Li Kie took the cloak of justice and carried it on his left shoulder before walking towards the island. Looking at the islands one after another, and many pirate shipowners slumped, Limo exclaimed, "What an island, one is connected to the other, are these ship pirates?" Li Kie walked around the island with a cape and a saber on his back, jumping from one island to another from time to time. Roar. There was a loud roar from the jungle, and a huge, scaly lizard rushed out, 7 or 8 meters high and 20 meters long, with a ferocious head, jagged fangs, and sticky saliva. Huh, lizard, hello. Mowgli lowered his eyelids. The lizard bared his teeth and looked down at Mowgli with a fierce look in his eyes. Mowgli raised his head, expressionless. Roar. The big lizard let out an angry roar, raised its front paws, stood upright, and opened its bloody mouth to charge at Mowgli. Well, lizards don't eat carrion, but I'm not dead yet. Boom. Lizard bowed his knees slightly, then jumped high until the head of the big lizard, turned his body, and kicked the lizard's chin. Whoosh. The huge lizard flew to the horizon like a ball. The lizard kicked and roared, and Molly fell. Just as it hit the ground, a wild boar bigger than the lizard with 2 huge fangs slammed into lizard. Boom! With his left hand against the big tusk of the wild boar stopped directly in place. Ang! No matter how the wild boar howls and exerts force, Li Qian will not move at all. Molly tilted his head and kicked the wild boar's jaw. Let's go. After the kick, Molly slowly walked to the ruins, sat on the stone and touched his chin. Where is this? How about 3,000? As he was talking, Li Qian tilted his head to the right. Hey! The sound of a blade cutting through the air. The stone pillar behind Molly was chopped into 2 pieces. Huh! Li Qian raised his head and looked back. Has the mantis become a sperm? A large green mantis more than 10 meters tall waved 2 large pincers. Damn, can the world get better? Molly picked up a small pebble next to him, flicked his fingers, and the big mantis head exploded instantly, and its huge body fell to the ground with a bang. Inside the palace, the Golden Lion and Indigo were still staring blankly at the little puppet. Brother Indy, why doesn't he speak? The Golden Lion touched his chin with a strange expression. Huh! Indigo cried out in surprise, then tapped the iron cage with his hand. When? The puppet in the iron cage trembled. Komi. Ah, he has spoken. The Golden Lion was overjoyed and said, then what? Indigo stared innocently. He can only say, Komi. Why? Asked the Golden Lion. Because his name is Kumik. The Golden Lion was stunned. Throw it away. Why? This is the latest experiment. Brother Indigo said hurriedly. Brother Indy, don't make a mistake. I'm Shiki, and my subordinates don't need this kind of trash. The Golden Lion just finished speaking, and then he grinned again. There's an ant on the murderer's island. Brother Indy, release all the beasts. Pirate Admiral Golden Lion Shiki, the man who once drove Roger to a dead end, then broke into the Marine headquarters Marin Vando, fought with Sengoku and Garp, and destroyed half of the existence of the Navy headquarters. How could he not be domineering? As a hero across the sea, the Golden Lion was also a powerful swordsman before he got the Piao Piao fruit. Everything that Molly did on the ferocious beast island, the Golden Lion has already sensed it. Although he knew that Molly was on the island, he didn't take it to heart. Who is he? He is a Golden Lion. A powerful, domineering, and defiant pirate. Now, Indigo asked. Dr. Brother Indigo, isn't I clear enough? The Golden Lion glanced at Brother Indigo with resting eyes. Yes, Boss Shiki. Indigo held up the iron cage and turned around and ran. When passing the suspension bridge, he let go and threw the iron cage containing the puppet Kumik. Shiji sat on the throne of the palace, watching the projection on the big screen of Molly easily beheading beasts, biting his cigar. His eyes were hideous. The world government, the Navy, the dark, dirty guys, when you guys use conspiracy to make Roger submit, but Lao Su will not submit. Lao Su is a Golden Lion. Chapter 30, Lion Power vs Ring Slash. Boom, boom, boom. All kinds of fierce beasts, flying in the sky and running on the ground, slammed into the ruins where Molly was located. Bang! Li Qian kicked the big rabbit with fangs. Kai! A large crocodile tens of meters long was hacked to death with one knife. Another knife. He hacked to death a large black and white bear with a height of more than 10 meters but short legs. What's wrong? You stabbed the wonderful story zoo. Molly said helplessly while dealing with the beast. Whoosh! There was a cracking sound in the air. An iron cage fell from the air, and when Lee looked up, he saw a human-shaped black watermelon head locked in the iron cage. What kind of art is this? Lee jumped up and caught the iron cage. Bang! Molly landed, all the strength poured down, and the ground sunk in a big chunk in an instant. Molly kept slashing the attacking beasts with his left hand, and placed the iron cage on the ground with his right hand. Limo looked at the little man inside. He could be 1.5 meters tall, wearing a black dress, a black watermelon head, and a pair of dark pea eyes. Huh, is it a puppet? Kumik grabbed the iron cage with both hands, looked at Molly, blinked Dudu's eyes suddenly, and called out, "Kumi." Damn it! The puppet is talking. It's still the voice of a child. Molly shouted out in surprise, and then said to himself, "The puppet child. The puppet has a child." Molly grabbed the iron cage and jumped to the top of the largest stone pillar in the ruins. Kumik looked up blankly. Komi. In an instant, it turned into a nighthawk more than 1 meter high, flapping its wings and flying out of the iron cage. Huh, transforming puppets. Molly was shocked. The puppets turned into eagles, and she wanted to fly. He threw away the iron cage directly, grabbed the justice cloak on his left shoulder with his right hand, and unfolded the cloak to cover the just flying Kumik. "You come back, you." The cloak of justice turned into a cloth bag and was carried by Molly behind his back. "Komi, Komi, Komi." Kumik struggled in the cloth bag, and Li Kie sneered, "If you are caught by me, just let me raise you honestly." Gradually, there was no movement in the cloth bag, probably because Kumik gave up. 1.5 seconds of freedom is also freedom. Anyway, I have enjoyed freedom. Limo put the saber in his waist again, and looked up at the largest island in the air. "Little puppet, you came down from there." The voice fell, and Li Kie lowered his body slightly. "Little puppet, let's go." Boom. The stone pillar was smashed into pieces by Molly's tremendous force, and Molly was flying in the air, heading straight for the palace of the Golden Lion. Puff, puff, puff. "Boss Ski, he can fly just like you," Brother Indigo exclaimed and pointed at Molly, who was flying in the air on the screen. The Golden Lion's face was a little gloomy, and he said angrily, "Shut up. Dr. Indy, he is not flying, he is jumping." Roar, roar, roar. The gorilla pointed at the screen and jumped up and down. "What did he say?" asked the Golden Lion. Indigo explained, "He caught Kumik." The Golden Lion frowned. "As Kumik its old lady?" Indigo changed into fangs in seconds. "Kumik is my latest experiment." "Humph. Forget it, kill this Navy first. He has already discovered this place and can't leave alive." Looking at Molly, who was already standing outside the palace, the Golden Lion raised his hand and turned his wrist. Molly looked at the palace of the Golden Lion and exclaimed, "It's bigger when you see it up close." Suddenly the ground began to vibrate, and the gravel underfoot jumped. Huh, the islands in the sky also have earthquakes. As soon as Molly finished speaking, a huge lion's head formed of sand rose from the ground and swooped down towards Molly. Molly drew his sword and slashed down, and the white slash instantly defeated the lion's head. What a strange island. Limo continued to want to move on and see what was in the palace. Suddenly a figure flew out from the top of the palace, standing in the air looking down at Molly. Huh, Li Kie was taken aback. What did he launch? Limo raised his head and looked at the figure in the sky, and only then did he see the person's appearance slightly. He has no feet, his legs are tied with a sword, he is holding his arms, he is holding a cigar, and there is a rudder on his head. Golden Lion looked down at Molly, arrogant and arrogant. "My name is Golden Lion Shaki, and I am a pirate." "Boy, you have some skills. It's a pity to be in the Navy. Do you want to follow me and become my arm?" Limo looked at the Golden Lion in the sky in confusion. What was he talking about? Who is Shiji? But this big old cock is so handsome. He can not only fly, but also has a sword tied to his legs. Is the rudder above his head a decoration? Shiji looked at Limo, who was below him, without answering, but looked at himself with a certain feeling. It was like watching monkeys in a circus when he was a child, and his eyes were full of novelty. The Golden Lion frowned. Was this kid laughing at himself? In an instant, the Golden Lion swooped down, and its right foot was flattened against Molly's head. Seeing the move to block, Li Kie raised his scabbard. When? Phew, blocked. The Golden Lion's eyes narrowed, and his brief surprise did not make him give up the attack. He continued to exert force with his right foot, and the huge force exploded, and Molly was kicked away by the Golden Lion. Molly, who was kicked away, raised his eyebrows in midair. Old rooster is quite strong. Mowgli's body twisted in midair and landed steadily on the ground. Looking at the golden lion where he was, he shouted, "Uncle Big Rooster, why did you hit me?" When the golden lion heard the words, a red light flashed in his eyes, and the whole person flew into the air, with his arms outstretched, and his golden hair fluttered wantonly by the strong wind. "I'm a golden lion, not a big rooster. You nasty little brat." He stretched out his right hand and turned his palm sharply. Lion Power Earth Scroll. The earth shook, the sand, gravel, and soil were like waves, surging and gathering. In an instant, there were 5 lion-headed mountains around Mowgli. The sound of the vibration was like a lion's roar, covering the sky and covering the sun, pressing down on Mowgli, who was as small as an ant. Ah, is this the ability of the old man? Mowgli felt his neck tighten in surprise. Huh, Mowgli turned his head slightly, and his eyes met a pair of black peas. Kumi tilde. I don't know when Kumik broke off his cloak and wrapped it into a cloth bag. His 2 thin arms hugged Mowgli's neck, the watermelon head rested on Mowgli's shoulders, his black eyes looked at Mowgli, and he screamed in a low voice. Sounded. Boom, boom, boom. The 5-headed mountain lion head has buried Mowgli and Kumik. The golden lion smiled grimly. This old man will take care of you in one breath, little devil in the Navy. As he said that, the golden lion grabbed his right hand, and the sand that buried Mowgli was like a tornado, twisting at extreme speed. Om. The twisted earth tornado lit up with white light, and a circular slash shattered the rocky soil like mountains. With a knife in hand, Mowgli broke through the ground with Kumik on his back, shot straight into the sky, and looked at the golden lion from afar. Old man, are you a capable person? Lee asked. Looking at the indifferent Mowgli, the golden lion's murderous aura was growing, and he laughed wildly, ha ha. Let me reintroduce, I am, she, known as the golden lion, a floating person who ate the fluttering fruit, also a swordsman. Lion Chikiri Valley. The famous sword of golden lion Shiki's legs instantly covered the color of his arms. He kicked his legs continuously, and several golden slashes with the color of advanced armament went straight to Li Kie, who fell in the air. Chapter 31. All the Means. Mowgli, who was falling from the air, watched the chaotic slashes coming. He drew his sword out of its sheath, flipped his wrist, lifted his saber, slashed diagonally, and sent out a white slash, slamming into a pile of golden slashes. Boom. The golden lion's Chikiria slash was completely dissipated by the white slash. The airflow rolled, and Mowgli in the air descended extremely fast. Bang. Mowgli smashed the ground and looked at the golden lion in the air. With a flick of his wrist, his saber turned sideways. Mowgli held the long saber and sent a huge slash at the golden lion Shiki in the air. It's very capable, kid. The golden lion was surprised by Li's strength. Not only was he safe from his own attack, but he also had the power to fight back. Chopping. The golden lion kicked hard with its right leg, and the high-strength armed colored blade slashed through the turbulent airflow, and also issued a huge golden slash, hitting the white slash. Boom. 2 half-moon-shaped slashes, a golden slash with a domineering look of armed force, and a sharp and pure white slash, collided fiercely in the air. The impact that erupted destroyed countless trees and stone mountains on the ground, and in an instant, the storm blew up, sending up puffs of smoke and dust. The golden lion's eyes narrowed, red light flashed, and the whole person moved sideways to dodge and fly, and the white slash in the smoke crushed the golden slash and smashed it towards the golden lion at the same time. After the golden lion dodged, he looked back at the slash that flew straight into the sky, and then looked back at the standing figure standing on the ground. Mowgli put the knife in the sheath, turned his head and asked Kumik, who was resting on his shoulder, shouting, "Do you know who the old man is? Why are you attacking me?" Kumik's dark eyes stared blankly at Mowgli, and after a while, Kumi. Li Mo nodded. Oh, I didn't understand it at all. Oops, this old man's flying ability is pretty fun. I don't know if he has any other moves. Mowgli took a deep breath, and his hands were like a loudspeaker. "Old man, do you have any other moves?" The golden lion was stunned for a while, then grinned and shouted, "Navy kid. Are you too arrogant?" The golden lion Shiji frowned, swooped down. The two famous swords of open black lens bracket Sakura 10 close black lens bracket open black lens bracket Muku close black lens bracket on both legs were covered with high-strength armament color domineering. Molly looked at the golden lion quietly, and saw that he was diving at an extreme speed. Just now, Molly flipped forward in front of him, and the black-blue blade slashed down with the help of the force of the flip. Molly drew the knife, and the snow-white blade blocked the golden lion with white light. When the blades collided, the two knives squeezed the air. Boom! The energy exploded, and the ground under Molly's feet shattered inch by inch under the tremendous force of the two. Kumik hid in the bag on Lee Kia's back long before the blade struck. The airflow collapsed, causing sand and stones to shoot in all directions, piercing the surrounding trees like bullets. Molly grinned. "Old man, you are very strong." The golden lion glared at Molly and said sternly, "Stop lying." Navy. When the words fell, the golden lion twisted in the air, and the blade of his left leg slashed towards Molly's head. Molly Jidao's right arm pushed slightly, pushing the golden lion away, and took a step back to dodge the attacking left leg blade. Cough. Molly flickered the dust in front of his eyes, coughed twice, and said, "Old man, you are quite interesting. You said you were a floating person just now, so you made this island." The golden lion smiled boldly. "Of course, isn't my ability very powerful? Except that I can fly, all the inanimate substances I have come into contact with will float in the air under my control, just like this." Lion Might Royal Palace Scroll. At the same time he flew upside down. With one hand, the sand and stones on the ground gathered again into 3 lion heads and charged towards Li Qiye. Wow, what an interesting ability, much stronger than the penetrating ability of 3000. Quote. Molly was surprised by the 3 earth lions rushing towards him, and there was some envy in his words. Molly turned his right hand, and the blade of the blade fell down across his chest. Cut. The golden lion saw that his move was smashed, and because he was concerned, he stretched out his hand, and a large amount of sea water flew up in a ball, suspended beside the golden lion. Lion Might Royal Palace Scroll. The sea water, like the earth and stone just now, condensed into a water lion pressing down on Li Molly on the ground. Huh, old man, you can still control water. Your ability is very rare. Looking at the sea lions covering the sky, Molly didn't panic at all, just chopped the waves. The blade picked up, and after slashing the water lion, the water droplets did not fall, but floated in midair, and reconvened into a huge water arrow to take Molly. Molly long knife forward. Stab. The cone-shaped slash envelops the airflow and rolls up the sand and hits the water arrow. Boom. The water droplets mixed with the gravel and soil, scattered and shot in all directions. Shiji sideways dodged the flying spiral slash, and looked at Li Qiye with cold eyes, raised his hands, and all the boulders on the ground rose into the air. Sky asked calmly, "Navy, what's your name?" Molly. "Okay, Navy Powerhouse, I agree with you." After Shiki finished speaking, he laughed horribly. "However, you're still going to die." With a big wave of the golden lion, all the boulders in the air fell at an extreme speed, and the target was Molly. "Hey, so why did I offend you?" Molly was a little helpless. "After I slept, I was inexplicably going to heaven. Then I encountered a bunch of little monsters, and now I am suddenly attacked by this old man." Backhand patted the small bean in the cloth bag on the back. Coney. Molly nodded, feeling a little at ease. It was fine if he was not shaken to death. Puppets that deformed must be very rare. If they were shaken to death, it would be a pity. Boom, 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 boom. The boulder kept hitting the ground, and Li Qiye kept changing positions to avoid the boulder. In the palace, all the pirates were watching the battle scene on the big screen. Roar, roar, roar. The gorilla danced and pointed at the screen. Indigo turned his head and said, Ski won the General Assembly. Although the Navy is very strong, his opponent is the Golden Lion. Roar, roar. Benos Island is not far from Rogue Town, and Smoker arrives in half a day. Smog stood at the port and looked at the 3000, he said in a deep voice, Did you ask Kizaru to give me an order to find Molly? For Smaller's unfriendly attitude, Johnson frowned, and Sanchin ignored Smolger's attitude because he was worried. Yes, Colonel Molly was taken to the sky by a boulder. 3000 told Smoker again about the disappearance of the island. Smoker frowned with 2 cigars in his mouth. Was this a natural phenomenon or someone with supernatural powers, intentional? Dusky, you go and question all the townspeople who know the situation. Yes, Colonel Smoker. Dasky saluted and led people into the town. Smoker looked up at the gloomy clouds in the sky. Laugh. Molly chopped up the last boulder, jumped on top of the pile of rubble, raised his long knife, and looked up at the wild golden figure in the sky. What a rude old man who likes sneak attacks. Chapter 32, The Heroic Golden Lion. The Golden Lion stood in the air, looking at the young navy below who had been at ease from beginning to end, standing quietly with a knife, staring at himself. For a moment, the Golden Lion wondered if he was getting old. But this kind of thinking was quickly put aside by Shiji. Lao Su is a Golden Lion. Humph. The hateful Navy has shaken my will. The Golden Lion looked at Molly with a gloomy expression. There were 3 question marks above Molly's head. This old man seemed to be sick. He was talking to himself there, and then he got angry. There was a boom in the air. Lion Power Earth Scroll. On the ground, many clods with spikes protruded. Limo looked left and right, and jumped up gently. Humph. You can't run. The earth continued to vibrate, and Molly, who was still suspended in the air for a short time, looked down, and a stone pillar rose abruptly. Wow, this trick is kind of interesting. Li Kie didn't panic, he was only excited to see someone with interesting abilities. The Golden Lion grinned, It's interesting. Then let's make your experience more interesting. I saw the Golden Lion clasped his hands together, Lion Might. Imperial Palace Scroll. More than 10 mountain-like stone lions in the air surrounded Li Mo and attacked Li Qi, who lost his balance in the air, from all directions. The stone lion was extremely fast, and the non-flying Molly couldn't control his balance in the air, but he saw him with his head down in a swooping pose, his right arm holding the knife flattened, and the knife's momentum driving his body to rotate, forming a huge ring. The slash burst out. Boom, boom, boom. More than a dozen stone lions shattered in an instant, and Li Kie also landed steadily. Molly tilted his head and looked at the Golden Lion in the sky. He shouted, Old man. Is there anything else? The Golden Lion was stunned for a moment, and then a burst of anger flooded his body. Ha ha, ha ha. It's been decades, Rocks, Roger, Garp, Sengoku, Whitebeard, Lingling, Kaido, Silver Axe, which one of them dares to do this? Which one dares to do this? Golden Lion Shiki, he clenched his hands tightly while laughing wildly, and the famous swords, Sakura Ten, and Muku tied to his legs instantly detached and returned to Golden Lion's hands. The Golden Lion in midair held a pair of knives, laughing wildly, and the long golden hair that was scattered all over the back was carried in the large robe that was blown by the wind. There are thick dark clouds in the sky that are about to roll over the earth, Ka. A bolt of lightning illuminated the furious face of the Golden Lion. Golden Lion Shiki, a great swordsman of the last era. The armed color on the 2 knives is condensed to the extreme, and the tip of the knives even begins to emit blue-black tentacles. How dare they laugh at the old man so much? In an instant, Shiki, the Golden Lion hovering in the air, instantly appeared right in front of Li Kie. He raised his 2 knives and slashed down, compressing the air to create a sonic boom. Molly's lazy eyes rarely showed a little seriousness. At the same moment, he clenched the scabbard with his left hand and blocked with the right hand. When the 3 knives slammed together fiercely, with the 2 at the center, the strong pressure air burst out, and the strong air wave emptied the area. Boom! Taking the two people as dots, the surrounding area exploded, forming a huge gravel pit. The strength vented down, and two cracks appeared behind Li Qian and reached the edge of the island. When the two were fighting, the golden lion gritted his teeth and said, "Navy, your knife can actually withstand the slashing of a black knife." Molly looked into the eyes of the golden lion and said, "I have always been very concerned about the thing you use called domineering, but I am too lazy to learn it, so I can only attach the blade to the blade." Golden Lion's eyes narrowed slightly, and he instantly figured out what Molly meant, and couldn't help but praise, "Knife gang. What a genius, really a genius." "Thank you." "No thanks, because." Shiji disappeared in front of Molly, and appeared to the left behind Molly in an instant, slashing down with a knife. When Limo turned slightly to the side and blocked a knife. "Because of what?" Shiji grinned, "Because the genius is about to perish." Before he could finish his sentence, another knife was taken straight at Molly's waist. When Sky was taken aback, scabbard. When the strong fight against each other, no distraction is allowed. When the golden lion was stunned, Li Qian kicked Shiji in the chest. Bang! Shiji flew out in parallel, and Molly also disappeared in place, appearing above the golden lion flying upside down in a blink of an eye. "Old man, you also take me a knife." Molly slashed horizontally, and the white slash tore through the messy air flow instantly. "Can't be hard connected." The moment he saw Limo wielding the knife, this thought immediately appeared in Shiji's mind. The ability of the fluttering fruit made him stop instantly, and then flew straight to the sky. Laugh! Boom! The white slash flashed, and the corner of the floating island was neatly cut. The golden lion in the air was surprised. Limo broke the rock, rose from the ground, and appeared in front of Shiji in an instant. Swinging the knife diagonally, it was another unrivaled slash. Golden Lion Shiji's eyes widened in anger. "Does this kid really think I can't catch it?" The two black knives were crossed in front of their chests, ready to meet Li's slash. Jung! The slash collided with the two black knives, and Shiki was pushed out. "Damn it!" The golden lion roared inwardly against the slash. The strength of the right arm caused the slash to change direction, and it could be avoided. Shiji stared blankly at his slightly trembling hands, and then laughed wildly, "Ha ha ha." There is no domineering and wildness in the wild laughter, it is full of loneliness and unwillingness. Can't even take a knife from a young man. Are you really getting old? In just a few short strokes, from the time of the fight to the present, it can be said that he has used all his means, but he still can't help the Navy. Looking up at the man who was slowly falling to the ground, he was still calm, and he tried his best, but he was able to dismiss it lightly. "Knife gang. Is that the sword gang? When I felt the white slash just now, there was an unmatched power in that pure blade." He was a little excited, and there was an indescribable emotion in his heart. This feeling was familiar to Shiji. He remembered that when he was young, he practiced kendo. In a few years, he defeated his master. In high spirits, he went to sea to find a bigger opponents, in order to sharpen themselves. Until he met a powerful swordsman and defeated him several times. After each defeat, Shiji would cultivate more crazily, improve himself more, and challenge again, and he had this emotion at that time. Later, he got the Piao Piao fruit. The ability of the fruit against the sky brought the golden lion the ambition to conquer the world, but it made him lose the underlying emotions of the essence. This emotion is called the heart of the strong. Shiji touched his chest, and Molly's kick caused him to break at least 4 ribs, and he looked down at the devastated floating islands that had been destroyed in the battle between the two. Shiji shook his wrist lightly, and dozens of islands began to fall slowly. He looked down at Molly in the air, and after a while, a heroic and hearty laughter came. He laughed loudly. "Navy. This is my last blow. Do you dare to take it?" At this moment, there was no emotion in Molly's eyes. He stared directly at the golden lion in the air, with a knife in front of his chest. Chapter 33. I remember you, Golden Lion Shiki. Ha 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 ha. This side of the world, resounded the sound of the Golden Lion's wild laughter. Up. Chopping. The huge golden slash was mixed with high-level armed domineering, forming a black gold slash that flew straight down from the sky. Speed, extremely fast. After the slash flew out, the Golden Lion Shiji swooped down following the slash with two swords. Moli patted his back, feeling the little doubting behind him moving, and Moli felt a little at ease. Looking at the slash directly at him, Lee can clearly feel that this slash is completely different from the previous one. Lee Kie faced the Golden Lion's last slash directly, and he breathed out the aura of the sword on his saber. Cut across. That is to say, while the chopping is broken, the sword's momentum is not reduced, and it points directly at the Golden Lion chopped by the two swords. Laugh. The two were staggered, facing each other. What's the old man's name? Moli's lazy voice sounded. The old man, Shiji, the Golden Lion, is a pirate. The Golden Lion replied. Moli nodded, put the knife in its sheath, turned around, and said softly, Golden Lion Shiki, if you ran away just now, I wouldn't go after you. The Golden Lion turned around slowly, a look of arrogance appeared on his face that had no joy or sorrow. Run away. Don't be kidding me, I'm a Golden Lion. Limo looked at the man whose vitality had been exhausted in front of him, was silent for a moment, and then said, Is this your pride? The Golden Lion did not speak. He looked at Moli calmly, his hands clenching, the two knives loosened, and his thumb lightly rubbed the hilt of the sword. This pair of famous knives that accompanied him throughout his life. Open black lens bracket Sakura 10 close black lens bracket open black lens bracket tree withered close black lens bracket. It seems that it has not been such a hearty battle for a long time. Looking up at the sky, the words Roger once said appeared in his mind. Ski, free adventures, fun fighting, that's what pirates are. Ha ha, Roger, maybe you're right. The Golden Lion Shiji refocused on Limo. Moli, this is really a hearty battle. That's right, Moli said. What a stinky and terrifying kid. The Golden Lion looked up at the dark cloud that Moli slashed, and stretched out his hand to block the dazzling sunlight penetrating through the crevices of the cloud. Is this the time? He waved his hand gently, and two famous knives crossed and floated in front of Li Kie. Take them, they are yours. Limo nodded, tore open the cloth bag, and wrapped the two knives. The Golden Lion watched Moli put away Sakura 10, and Muku grinned, and slowly descended from the sky. Bang! A gigantic orangutan flashed out of the dilapidated palace. It ignored Moli, who was watching him, and lay directly under the fallen Golden Lion. It slowly carried the Golden Lion on its back and walked towards the palace step by step. In the palace, Indigo straightened the collapsed throne, and the gorilla carefully placed the Golden Lion on the throne. Then no one made a sound, and just sat on both sides of the throne. As usual, the two accompanied the Golden Lion to overlook the whole world and the whole sea. It's just that it's less noisy and more quiet than usual. Li Kie looked at them silently. There is no doubt that Sky is a real hero. Compared to Roger's partner, Whitebeard's family, Sky is lonely. He used to regard Roger as a friend, so after Roger was arrested, he would go to the naval headquarters alone, standing in Marin Fando and shouting, How could Roger be caught by you trash? But I agree with him, man. Whitebeard may be his friend, so when he escaped from the advanced city, he went to find Whitebeard and said a little jokingly, What would the sea be like without Roger? It seems to be your time now, Whitebeard. Like the Rocks pirates, his Flying Sky pirates are a combination of interests, without partners, only interests. But he is not alone. Under his throne, there are two figures who have been with him all the time, whether it is the mighty Golden Lion or the dead old man with broken legs. Boss sigh. Losing the control of the Golden Lion's ability, the floating island began to crumble. The floating island fell at a high speed, and the squeezing airflow caused the island to fall into pieces. Kumi. Kumik climbed onto Limo's shoulder again, and looked curiously at the double knives wrapped in the cloak of justice. Moli smiled and said, in my hometown, after the swordsman is defeated, he will give his saber to the enemy, hoping that the enemy will find a successor for him. If he fails to find a successor, the pair of swords will not see the sun for a day. He paused, then said, I didn't expect the swordsman here to be like this. Ski the Golden Lion, I remember you. After glancing in the direction of the palace, Li Qiye turned and ran towards the edge of the island. Immediately afterwards, Li Qiye jumped up and jumped off the island against the strong wind. Everyone in Benos town stood at the port and watched in shock as more than a dozen islands fell from the sky. Several islands collided and overwhelmed each other, forming a new island in the sea. There were also several seas that were heavily smashed into the sea. Fa, what happened? Johnson said in shock. Is it an empty island? Sanchin asked. Smog shook his head and said, the Sky Island cannot be dropped without special circumstances, and even if it falls, it is impossible to drop the entire island group. Ah, someone fell, Dusky exclaimed. Huh. Everyone looked carefully, and there was indeed a figure in the air, falling down at an extreme speed. Wearing a white suit, he was holding a long package in his left hand, a simple long knife in his right hand, and there seemed to be a human-shaped thing hanging around his neck. Ah, it's Moli, Sanchin shouted excitedly. It is indeed Colonel Moli, Johnson said. After a while of surprise, everyone looked at Moli, who was getting closer, and fell into silence. Well, how does Colonel Moli land? Dasky broke the silence and whispered. That's the question, how exactly should I land? Falling into the sea seems to be no different from land. Colonel Smoker can handle it with his smoke fruit ability. Dusky asked, looking at Smoker. Smog shook his head and said, no, Bai Yan's endurance is limited, and his impact is so great that Bai Yan can't handle it at all. Sanchin didn't speak, and frowned as he looked at Moli, who was about to land in the air. Boom! Like a cannonball, Li Qiye slammed directly on the beach not far from the port, and the huge impact stirred up dust several meters high. Cough cough. Komi, Komi. There was a light cough in the sand, and the voice of a young girl. Bang! As soon as Moli stepped out of the bunker, he had a soft body. Moli was stunned for a while, then patted her shoulder. 3000, where have you gone? I can't find you. Listening to Moli's wicked complaining first, the 3000 anger will not strike at one place, the small hands become iron tongs, and the soft flesh around Moli's waist is twisted 360 degrees. After twisting a few times, seeing that Moli didn't move, Sanchin raised his head and wanted to ask if Moli didn't hurt. The moment Sanchin raised his head, he saw a little girl with a watermelon head, leaning on Moli's shoulder, staring at him with black peas eyes. Huh, who is she? Kumi tilde. Moli's eyes flashed. Murderous. Chapter 34, You two have a good time. In the dining room, the well-fed Moli was paralyzed on the chair, looking at the ceiling. Smog hugged his shoulders and closed his eyes with 2 cigars in his mouth. Dasichi held the knife and looked at Moli curiously. Kumik sat blankly on the chair, his petite body completely hidden under the dining table, only revealing a cute watermelon head, and his black eyes stared at the leftovers on the table. Sanchin looked solemnly at Kumik, who was sitting opposite her. I was thinking about whether to split this potential threat into several parts and throw them all over the world. Glancing at the main seat, Moli, who was hanging dead fish eyes, was instantly furious, and ascended to the sky for no reason, which made people worry. Now he came back safe and sound, but what happened to this puppet girl? This dog man. Angry lady. Sanchin was about to get angry when he heard Smoker speak. Colonel Moli, since you are back safely, I will leave. There are still many pirates in Rog Town waiting for me to deal with them. Hearing this, Moli raised his head and looked at Smog in confusion. After a while, he looked at Sanchian and asked, Your friend? Smorgton's face was full of black lines, looking at Moli's lazy look, who couldn't understand the situation. No matter how he looked at it, he looked the same as Kizaru. Sanchin endured it, and told himself in his heart that business is important, business is important. He's the base commander of Rogue Town, Colonel Smokey. After you took to the sky, I called Lao Sa, and Lao Sa asked Colonel Smoke to come and look for you. Li Mo nodded. It turned out that Lao Sa asked him to come. Li Mo said, "Thank you, old smoker." Old smoker. Smoker's eyelids twitched. Li Mo added, "I'll be in the East China Sea in the future. We're all brothers from the same area." Area. East China Sea is an area. Not only Smog gritted his teeth, even Dusky looked at Mo Li in surprise. This colonel is so powerful that he angered Colonel Smog with just a few words. Humph. The direct subordinate of General Kizaru is really like him. After saying a word, Smog got up and left. Dusky hurriedly got up, and politely bowed slightly to Mo Li. "Goodbye, Colonel Mo Li." Then she hurried to Smog. Li Mo looked at Smog and pouted. The workplace is really scary. When he first arrived in this area, his colleagues didn't want to see him. It was really troublesome to go to work. "Huh, what are you doing?" Seeing Sanchin and Kumik staring at each other, Li Kie asked strangely. "Nothing." Mo Li was taken aback. "What are you doing? Then why are there small flames in your eyes?" "Sanchin, are you angry?" Li Kie asked tentatively. Sanchin's beautiful eyebrows twitched. His fire-breathing eyes stared at Mo Li, gritted his teeth and said, "Angry. How could I be angry? Who are you? You are my savior." "No. Our town's savior. How could I possibly be mad at you?" After Sanchin finished speaking, Ju hugged his shoulders and squinted at Kumich's cute appearance. His anger grew even stronger. Boom. Sanchin slammed the table and said angrily, "Let's go quickly when you're full. What are you doing sitting here?" After speaking, he left. Mo Li didn't dare to speak the whole time. Watching Sanchin leave, Mo Li smacked his lips and looked at Kumik. Sanchin doesn't like keeping pets. Kumik blinked his sooty peacock eyes. "Kumi tilde. Huh, you killed Shiki the golden lion." Kizaru on the phone bug side was a little surprised. He said his name was Golden Lion, and he emphasized it several times. Li said, "Well, forget it, he's not important anyway. Since Merdafar Island is gone, you can just find a small island to build a naval base." "Oh. Gotcha." Li Kie sat on the pile of the pier, looked around, smacking his lips, looking for an island. Li Mo looked at Johnson, who was in command of the shipping of the King of Marines, and shouted, "Da Chang." "Hi, Colonel Mo Li." Johnson ran to Mo Li, saluted, and then said, "All the supplies have been loaded onto the ship, and you can set sail at any time." Li Mo nodded, looked at Johnson with admiration, and said, "Da Chang, you did a great job." Johnson was instantly full of blood, and his work was affirmed by his superiors, which was the best incentive for him. "Move down again." "Huh." Johnson looked at Mo Li in disbelief. Didn't he just move up? Why did he move down again? Mo Li scratched his head, a little embarrassed. "Old Saw said let me find an island to build a base at random. Look at this island, it is like spring all year round, the scenery is pleasant, and there is such a big volcano, how wonderful." So. Hey, I get it, Colonel Mo Li, I'll do it right now. Johnson responded and left, completely lost his passionate look just now. "Can't you call an hour earlier? Everyone has finished their work, you have changed your mind, hey." The leader waved his mouth, and his subordinate broke his leg. Life is miserable. After explaining the matter to Da Chang, Li Kie's eyes fell on the beach. "Dig the pit." Sanchin stood on the beach and looked at Kumik and said grimly. "Komi." Kumik didn't understand why this silver-haired devil brought himself here. "I don't understand human words, right? Good. I'll plan it for you." Sanchin raised his hand expressionlessly as soon as he finished speaking. Armed color, hardened, the small white hands turned pitch black in an instant. Kumik stared blankly at 3000, Kumi. Hee. A sneer, bang. 3000 is a punch to the beach, directly smashing a big bunker. The sand and dust dissipated, Sanchin looked at the bunker with satisfaction, and Kumik also leaned forward to look into the bunker. Sanchin looked at Kumik and raised his clean chin towards the bunker. Go in. Kumik looked at the sand pit, and then looked at the terrible appearance of the silver devil. He realized, is this silver-haired devil trying to bury me? Although Kumik is very dumb, he is not stupid. 3000 looks full of danger, who is not afraid? Kumik's body swelled instantly, his thin arms turned into long wings, his calves turned into eagle claws, his big wings fluttered twice, took off in place, and rushed towards Li Qian. Just when Kumik was transformed, Sanchin was stunned. It turned out to be a capable person. No wonder it is so annoying, you still want to fly. The palm of his arm, which has not yet dissipated, directly grabbed the eagle claws of Kumik, who had already taken off in place, and dragged it down. Come down you. Bang. He directly threw Kumik in the Nighthawk state into the bunker. Seeing that Kumik was still struggling in the bunker, Sanchin sneered and jumped into the bunker to hold down Kumik's big flapping wings and grab the eagle's claws. Fuck. Mo Li, who witnessed the whole process of the human-eagle war, couldn't believe it. How did Sanchin get along with the eagle? Xiaoduding is just a pet, what's wrong with her? Mo Li quickly ran to the edge of the bunker, only to see 3000, who was 1.6 meters tall, and Kumik, who had recovered to 1.5 meters, were strangling each other's necks, lying in the bunker, their bodies and hair all covered in sand. Li Qian helplessly rested his forehead, otherwise, let's go. Chapter 35, Is it so hard to build a small bunker? The temporary station of the Navy, the temporary office of Li Mo. Looking at the two people with disgraced faces and sand in their hair, Li Mo opened his mouth, not knowing what to say. What can he say? Are your subordinates and your pets engaged? Isn't this nonsense, idiot? Absolute domestic ugliness. He licked his lips and said to the puffed-up Sanchin, Sanchin, I'm actually my fault for not making it clear, Xiaoduding is a shape-shifting puppet. The realization of 3000 was suddenly transferred from Kumik's body to Mo Li's body. When he turned his head like this, the sand on his hair fell off. You said she was a puppet. Mo Li nodded, his eyes lit up. It will transform into an eagle and fly. Sanchin ignored him, but turned around Kumik a few times, grabbed his arm, and stunned the watermelon head. He did see the joints with obvious links. Sanchin's face turned red, he was eating vinegar from a puppet. How to do? So awkward. Sanchin turned his head slightly, glanced at Mo Li out of the corner of his eye, and found that he was also looking at Kumik curiously. Sigh, dull man. Cough cough. Sanchin coughed lightly to ease his embarrassment, rubbing Kumik's watermelon head with one hand and said, Why did you bring her back? Mo Li looked at Sanchin like a fool, how could she ask such a stupid question? Hey, what do you mean by that look? Sanchin felt the unfriendly look in Mo Li's eyes. He'll be out of shape. Li Mo explained as a matter of course. Well, then what? Kumik would change shape, and 3000 knew it when he was at the beach, and had a fight. 3000's indifference dampened Mo Li's passion. He smacked his lips and said, I want to keep her as a pet. Being a pet, Sanchin looked down at the cute little puppet whose watermelon hair was messed up by himself, and thought about it. Okay. Anyway, it is a puppet, and it will not threaten her status, and her positioning is still a pet, so just keep it. How did you say she was deformed? Sanchin Kai asked strangely, pulling Kumik at the meeting. Mo Li also crouched down, observed carefully, and shook his head. I don't know, maybe there is some mechanism. Kumik stared blankly at the two of them breaking off here and there. Kumi tilde. What are these two humans going to do to my body? The two here are studying how Kumik is deformed, and Johnson has indeed made a mistake. Where should the naval base be built? Benos is a volcanic island, surrounded by a ring of forests around the huge crater, surrounded by sandy beaches. If it is built next to the town of Benos, the coastal defense force must be considered. This time, the navy that Mo Li brought over was 150 people. It was enough to build a base and be stationed on an island. Moreover, Moli also brought a lot of weapons and equipment and a lot of money. Mayor Kunu is very happy that the Navy can establish a naval base on Benos Island. After all, civilians still believe in the Navy. In this way, the volcanic island of Benos Island has officially become the base branch of the Navy in the territory of Limoli. Report. Johnson shouted loudly, standing outside the door of Lee's temporary office. Da Chang, come in. Limo sat on the chair with drooping eyelids, reading the newspaper idly. Da Chang, is something wrong? Johnson saluted Moli and said, Colonel Moli, since you have decided to build a base in Benos town, you have to make up your mind about the location. Ah Tilda, weakly agreed. Li Kie looked at the map of Benos Island on the wall. Pointing to a random place, it's not bad here. Johnson looked at where Moli was pointing, and a few black lines appeared on his forehead. Colonel Moli, that's the port of Benos town. Building a base in a port doesn't allow people to go to sea. Block people's roads, okay. Ah, so, what about here? Moli scratched his head and pointed to another place. It's a sandy beach, not suitable. What about here? The heart of the island. Colonel Moli, stop joking, this is the crater. Moli was also annoyed. Then where did you say it? Johnson said, I propose to build the base next to the town of Benos, where not only is the foundation solid, it is also close to the port, and it is easy to hire townspeople to work. Moli was defeated by Johnson's seriousness and sighed. Da Chang, since you have already chosen, go ahead and ask me what to do. Johnson stiffened his back and said solemnly, Colonel Moli is the base director of this naval base. Everything needs to be chosen by Colonel Moli. Moli's face turned bitter. This guy is really serious. Da Chang, then do it. You are my deputy, and you have the right to make decisions. However, Johnson was righteous and said, only Colonel Moli can make a decision, I will wait. Fuck you, Moli said angrily. Johnson ran away in a hurry. Is it so hard to make a small bunker? After he finished speaking, he leaned back, ignoring Sanchin who was reading a book next to him and Kumik who was in a daze, picked up the newspaper and covered his head, and went to sleep. Marin Fando, Office of the Warring States Marshal. Warring States period, Kayabu, Lieutenant General Crane, and Iokiji, who is lazy back to the headquarters. Allah, little brother Moli is very powerful. The Golden Lions have all been defeated by him. Kuzan leaned on the sofa and said lazily. Compared to Kuzan's laziness, the Warring States Marshal lowered his eyebrows and said solemnly, Pelusalino, this matter. Are you sure? Huang Yuan pouted and said, almost so, there is no need for Li to lie to me. When the Warring States heard the words, he stopped talking. Crane smiled and turned his eyes to the blue sea in the distance, with a faint memory in his eyes. Crane and Sengoku, Garp, and Zephyr were comrades in arms at the same period. At that time, the biggest enemy of the Navy was Lox, and they naturally had contact with the big pirates under Lox. The Golden Lion Shiki is naturally one of them. After fighting back and forth for so many years, he disappeared for more than 10 years after breaking out of the city. Now it is dead in the hands of the new generation of the Navy. It has to be said that the gears of the times will not stop turning, and the new generation will replace the old. The Warring States period was silent. As a naval marshal, although he was a little sad in his heart, after all, he was an old opponent for many years, but he had to consider more. Activate all the espionage personnel to find the Piao Piao fruit. Warring States said solemnly. If the Golden Lion, the owner of the fluttering fruit ability, dies, the fluttering fruit will be randomly reborn in a corner of the world. Never allow a second Golden Lion to appear. Need a CP organization that unites with the world government? He asked. As soon as Lieutenant General Crane finished speaking, both Qingzi and Kayabu looked at the Warring States in silence. If the world is looking for something, the CP organization is undoubtedly the best choice. All-pervasive and ubiquitous is the meaning of the existence of the CP organization. After thinking about it for a long time, the Warring States said, "No need, compared to the fluttering fruit, Li Qian is more important." Chapter 36. You say I'm not here. The construction of the base has been completely handed over to Johnson, and Johnson is happy to accept it, because he knows that Molly and Sanchin are just passing the scene. With their strength, they must go to the New World University. Show your skills. And he has only two choices, or try his best to improve his strength and follow Molly. Either the rank is mentioned as Lieutenant Colonel or Colonel, and he stays here to take over Lee's class. According to Johnson's inner thoughts, he actually prefers the latter, so Johnson works extra hard. Maybe he will be his own pension in the future. Place. With more than 100 navies and townspeople hired from Beano's town, the prototype of the naval base next to Beano's town was built in 6 or 7 days. In the evening, there were 2 large deck chairs on the shore of the port. Molly and Sanchian sat on the deck chairs, and Li Qian accompanied Sanchian to spend the time fishing. Molly glanced at Sanchin. It's been 2 hours, and I haven't caught any fish. What are you doing fishing? You care about me. Sanchian didn't even look at Molly. Li Mo shrugged and said, didn't I teach you how to fish? Why do you still use a fishing rod? 3000 heard the words, only to feel the blue veins on the head jumping, and said viciously, I am a devil fruit person, I will die when I go to sea. Li Mo slapped his forehead, remembering that Lao Sa said that you can't take a bath after eating devil fruit. At the thought of not being able to take a bath, Li Qian glanced at Sanchian in disgust. Hey, what do you mean by that look of disgust in your eyes? Sanchin froze instantly, the look in his eyes when he looked at me was full of disgust. How long has it been since you took a bath? Li Qian asked. Sancheni was stunned, and then said, wash every day. Molly immediately denied it. Impossible, you've already eaten devil fruit, how can you take a shower? Sanchin understood in an instant, and the fair-skinned fist clenched and clenched, endured and endured. I can't help it. Bang. 3001 punches were printed on Molly's face, and Molly instantly flew out, sliding 3 or 4 meters away. Li Qian sat up from the ground and rubbed his face, but it didn't hurt, but he just didn't understand why Sanchin beat himself up. He had obviously been fishing with her for 2 hours. Sanchin looked at Molly sitting on the ground, tilted her head, rubbed her face, and her dazed appearance made her want to laugh a little, but she held back. This fool, what is going on in his head all day? Either eating or sleeping, the two of them finally had a space to be alone, and they said such unpleasant words. Why did you beat me? Li Qian asked. Sanchin rolled his eyes at him, because you were cheap. What an inexplicable woman. She is trying very hard not to sleep to accompany her to fish, and she beats me. If you beat me again, I'll leave, and you can fish by yourself. Molly muttered back to his reclining chair, adjusted the position of his buttocks, and lay down comfortably. Sanchin ignored his thoughts, took out a big red apple from his small bag, ate it on his own, took a bite, and ate it. Molly's eyes lit up. Huh. Such red apples must be delicious. 3000. Are apples sweet? Huh. Sanchin glanced at him and said casually, this, I'll give you another taste. Crack. Well, it's sweet, and the pulp is crispy and juicy, sweet. We. PFF'd. Listening to Molly's angry breathing, Sanchin almost spit it out. Why does this guy love to eat so much? Well, here it is for you. When I passed by Aunt Kaka's fruit stand just now, I bought it for you. Sanchin handed over the fruits and snacks in the satchel to Molly. This guy has a lot of strength, but he is lazy, and his personality is even a little indifferent. Although this man is very slow, he really relies on him. In the Navy dormitory, a Navy suddenly said, have you been to the crater? I haven't been there, what's wrong? There is a natural hot spring over the crater. I asked the mayor today. The mayor said that the hot spring has existed for many years. At the beginning, they also wanted to try to develop and construct it, but it seemed very evil. They just excavated a part on the first day. It will automatically return to its original state in 2 days. Quote. Really? Is there such a thing? A Navy asked in surprise. Yes, if you don't believe me, ask the mayor yourself tomorrow, said the Navy. It's not that I don't believe it, it's a bit evil. Could it be the ability of the devil fruit? A Navy whispered. You mean, there are powerful beings lurking over the crater? What if it's really a monster? How is that possible? Ha ha. Ha ha. It's all fucking sleeping for Lao Su. You're not tired of working during the day, are you? Johnson's loud voice sounded outside the door. Suddenly there was a snoring sound in the house. Listening to the snoring in the room pretending to be asleep, Johnson smiled. These idiots. There are monsters in the crater. The crater, Johnson murmured as he walked. The morning at the naval base was very lively. Seeing that the base was built little by little, everyone was in full swing. In the office, Molly had his feet on the table, and his face was covered with a newspaper. Early in the morning, he went to bed after breakfast, and he was no one. 3000 sat on the sofa in good order with a book of navigation log, and read it with relish. Kumik also has a new task, sitting on the windowsill holding a big apple and chewing. According to what Lily said, something that can't be eaten is not a good thing, so the first thing Kumik does is learn to eat. In the construction of the base, Molly also contributed and did the work. A large base requires a foundation of more than 10 meters. If you dig slowly, it will require a lot of labor input and the construction period will be very long, so Molly jumped high. Just 1 foot against the ground, a huge deep pit more than 10 meters deep is formed. The workers were so frightened that they hurriedly invited him back. If this uncle was interested in doing it and tried too hard, poking here and touching there, then their previous projects were not in vain. Colonel Molly, smoker from Rog Town, sent a fax saying that a group of pirates came here, and he asked you to snipe and arrest this group of pirates. Johnson said with a military salute. Limo tore off the newspaper on Za's face, and said with a displeased expression, Da Chang, just say I'm not here. Ah, is this okay? Johnson was a little embarrassed. Remove the, Limo said. Yes, let's do it now. The leaders have spoken, what else can be done? Do it. Johnson had been gone for a while, and Molly also ate an apple, ready to sleep again, and then waited for lunch. Blue blue, blue blue. The phone bug on the table had 2 cigars dangling from his face, and there was a scar on his face, where he pouted wildly, and Limo frowned. Hello. Molly, there is a group of high. Kacha. Blue blue. Molly. Kacha. Blue blue. Limo grabbed the phone bug and threw it out along the wide open window. Don't you fucking know that I have the urge to get up? 10 minutes later, Johnson came with another report, but he didn't dare to make a sound, because the phone bug just happened to hit his head along the window. Johnson put the report on the desk slowly, and then slowly backed out. The fax reads, Maruya Pirates, escape from Rog Town, escape direction, Benos Island. Chapter 37, Throwing Shells with Bare Hands. When Li Kie woke up, he threw the newspaper on the table, covering the fax sent by Smoker. Catch the pirates. You white-haired old smoker still want me to work. How about Lao Sa? Huh, Molly muttered and got up. Looking at the white-haired loli who was dozing off with a book on the sofa, she pouted, You are a literate person with a book in your hand. Let's go, it's time for lunch. Li Kie picked up Sanchin directly and walked out. Colonel Molly. Colonel, you are awake. Hello, Colonel Molly. Along the way, the Navy and the townspeople greeted each other, and Limo also responded one by one. In the cafeteria, Molly and San Qian were eating, and Mayor Kunu also came with a large plate of food. Lord Molly, Miss Sanchin. Mayor Kunu greeted with a smile. Well, Mayor, you don't need to be called an adult, it's a little weird. Lee said. Ha ha, okay, Mr. Molly. Mayor Kunu smiled and sat opposite Molly and Sanchin. During the meal, he didn't say a word, because Sanchin was still not enough to sleep. This slut, Li Kie, had a quirk. Whatever he wanted to go, he had to let her go too. After a while, Molly, who was full of wine and food, felt his round belly, burped comfortably, and said lazily, "Mayor Kunu, do you usually rely on going out to sea to fish for a living?" Kunu said, "No, in addition to fishing, there are also trades with passing merchant ships. You also know that Benos Island is a volcanic island, and the usable area is very small, so it can't produce anything." Molly thought for a while and said, "There should be hot springs near the volcano. Why don't you develop them and do hot spring tourism?" In fact, where there are hot springs, there are not necessarily volcanoes, but also because the underground river is heated by the geothermal heat below to become hot water, which in turn forms hot springs. But this island has volcanoes and underground fresh water, so there should be hot springs. As soon as these words came out, Mayor Kunu had a strange look on his face, and he shook his head. "There is hot spring water. We also thought about development and construction at the beginning, but there are some evil sects. Automatically reverts to its original state." Quote, "If they could, they would have established a hot spring town long ago, but the place is very evil." Hearing what the mayor said, Molly and Sanchian looked at each other. Devil fruit ability. "Mayor, can you take us to see it this afternoon?" Sanchin said. Let's not say goodbye. I know your force is very powerful, but that place is really a bit evil." Sanchin continued, "It's okay, Mayor, as long as the investigation is clear and the hot spring industry is developed, the town's economy will be much better, right?" Seeing that the two of them were firm, Kunu also remembered the terrifying force of Li Kie, so he nodded, "Okay, I'll take you there now." "Ha, let's go, then, after you're done, you can soak in the hot spring." Molly was a little excited. After sleeping in the hot spring, the taste must be unusual. Suddenly, Johnson quickly walked to Molly's side, gave a military salute, and said, "Colonel Molly, there is a pirate ship approaching the port." Molly was a little unhappy when his interest was suddenly interrupted. Didn't he see that I was fantasizing about a better life in the future? Pirates are here to make trouble. He frowned and said impatiently, "You go and tell them that it is not convenient for us to loot today, let them go." After Molly finished speaking, the three people present were stunned. "Do you think this is just a life and a pirate game? It's not convenient for you today, and people won't come." Colonel, they are pirates and won't listen to you." The muscles on Johnson's face were twitching. He just wanted to say, "He really deserves to be the direct subordinate of General Kizaru, he is really an office worker. It's annoying, let's go and sink them." As soon as he finished speaking, Li Kie walked out first. The newly built naval base is right next to Benos town and shares a port, so the few people saw the pirate ship approaching the port as soon as they left the cafeteria. On the pirate ship, a big man with a height of more than 3 meters, carrying a machete, looked at Benos town and an unbuilt naval base, and shouted excitedly, "Little boys, grab the naval base first, and then rob the town," rested, and went back to get revenge on that bastard smoker. Vengeance. Grab. Money. Beauty. Come on, brothers. When the pirate ship was still 3 or 4 meters away from the shore of the port, the pirate captain carried a big sword, roared, and jumped directly to the shore. When the pirates on the pirate ship saw that the captain was so brave, they all cried out in excitement. "Colonel Lee, we are ready for battle." Johnson looked at the pirates in the port solemnly and shouted loudly. Molly was stunned. What preparations for battle? Molly turned his head and saw, good guy, more than 100 navies with flintlock guns and knives slung together quickly. Molly smacked his lips, looked down, took 2 steps slowly, picked up a cannonball in the ammunition box, weighed it, and then looked at the pirate ship that was docking immediately. "Let's go." A cannonball was thrown out by Molly with his bare hands, and the cannonball flew at high speed in the air, heading straight for the pirate ship. Boom. The pirate ship will stop with 1 meter left, and the pirates on the ship have even thought about how much treasure they will grab. The pirate captain was stunned with a big sword. He had a boat of little brothers just now, and now he is alone. The navy at the naval base grew their mouths and couldn't speak in surprise. You and Lieutenant General Garp's fighting style can't be said to be similar. Mo scratched his head and said, Da Chang, there is a strong worker there, don't kill him, let him go to the construction site to work. Ah, yes, Colonel Mo Johnson agreed in a daze, and surrounded the unlucky pirate with more than 100 people. Mayor. Mo watched Mayor Kunu staring blankly at the port without leading the way. He was a little anxious. He didn't know that it would be better to have a hot spring. Knowing this, he felt like a cat scratching his heart. Ah, let's go, let's go. Mayor Kunu woke up from the shock. Colonel Lee was so fierce, he even threw cannonballs with his bare hands. After 3,000 walks, it's not surprising, he secretly pouted, throwing artillery shells with his bare hands is nothing, and he can't die if he falls from a height of 10,000 meters, making a fuss. Johnson went to catch the pirate ship and return to the construction site to work, while Mo and Sanchian followed Mayor Kunu to the foot of the volcano to find the hot spring. On the streets of Rog Town, Smog sat on his scooter and looked gloomily at a group of pirates in the Halushi fishing net. Since the words of the pirate King Roger set off the era of the great pirates, Rog has is the island closest to the entrance of the Great Route. The town is visited by batches of pirates every day. Smog feels a little too busy now. Although these pirates are low in strength, there are many people, and if they are not careful, they will slip through the net. Colonel Smog, all 5 pirates except the Maruya pirates have been arrested. Dasky hurried over to report. Smog clenched his brows, gritted his teeth, and said coldly, Mo this bastard. Chapter 38, Big Sister. You are my confidant. Mo and Sanchin followed Mayor Kunu and walked through the lush and towering woods. What they saw was a rocky mountain covered in volcanic ash. Unlike the salty sea breeze on the sea surface, here, the wind brings a taste of earth. Sanchin frowned and said, the smell of earth here is so heavy. Kunu smiled and said, this is the smell of volcanic mud. Volcanic mud has the magical effect of whitening and skin care. Really? Sanchin's eyes lit up, whitening and beautifying her skin. Can that girl withstand such a temptation? Well, it's true, and the things we traded with merchant ships in the past were gems found under the volcano, Kunu said. Unlike Sanchian who was immersed in the fantasy of whitening, Mo looked at Mayor Kunu strangely. He always felt that Mayor Kunu was like a treasure chest, saying some shocking words from time to time. Picking up gems next to the volcano to exchange money, you have a lot of tricks. Let's go, that hot spring eye is in front, Kunu said and continued to lead the 2 forward. The 3 walked to the edge of a small water pool that was bubbling out. It's really a hot spring. Mo was a little overjoyed. Living on this island must be very good. There is food, drink, and hot springs. He is still the leader of this island. These days are quite nice. Sanchin touched the hot spring water behind him and said, the water temperature is also very good. Mo couldn't wait any longer, and said quickly, Mayor Kunu, hurry up and find someone to develop it. I'll be here to guard it. I'm looking forward to seeing who dares to make trouble for me. Suddenly, a red light flashed in Sanchin's eyes, and he said to Mo don't wait, it's here. 3000's knowledge and domineering is not strong, cannot cover the entire island, but such a place is still possible. Mo raised his eyebrows, where? Sanchin reached out and pointed to the halfway up the mountain, about 500 or 600 meters high, it's under the rock formation there. Mo followed his line of sight and saw that the sloped mountain was littered with large and small rocks, and a layer of volcanic ash seemed to have solidified. Mo took out the saber and handed it to Sanchian, moving his wrist, I'm going to grab it out. Mayor Kunu was taken aback and asked, Mr. Lee, how do you want to catch it? Mo smiled, just grab it. As soon as the voice fell, Li Kie disappeared in place, and appeared on the rock formation pointed by Sanchin in the next second. Boom! Mo slammed into the rock formation with his left hand, grabbed a human-shaped object, and threw it down the direction of 3000 at the foot of the mountain. Ah! Mayor Kunu was stunned, this Mr. Lee is really unexpectedly violent. Sanchin watched Mo throw something down, and when he saw that he was in front of him, his right leg slightly retreated, his body slightly to the right, and his right hand was covered with a domineering look of armament. Bang! Punch and fly. Ah, even Miss Sanchin is so violent. Mayor Kunu, who has never seen 3,000 shots, has been blinded. Ah, spare your life, spare your life. After the humanoid object in the air was smashed by 3,000, he shouted for his life. Huh, Kunu and Sanchin at the foot of the mountain were stunned. Is this thing a person? Mo grinned. What kind of fun mountain spirit monster is this? Li Qiye jumped up, grabbed the man in the air, and fell to Sanchin's side. When he lifted the person in his hand, he saw it clearly. A woman wearing gray-black clothes and short brown hair has many stone flakes attached to her clothes, like a layer of rock armor. Grabbed by Mo, his limbs were like a cat caught in the back of his neck, his limbs drooping and he dared not move. 3,000 or so looked at it and asked in doubt, "What is this?" Li Mo said, "It looks like a fairy." The woman heard the words and shouted, "I'm not a goblin, I'm a human, a human." Snapped. Li Qiye threw the woman on the ground, and squatted beside the goddess with 3,000 people, staring at the woman. The woman was so frightened that she quickly stepped back and stared vigilantly at Mo and Sanqian. These two people were not easy, they found themselves at once, and they even knocked themselves away. They are definitely not from the East China Sea. The woman swallowed her saliva and pretended to be calm. She pointed at Li Qiye and threatened, "Get out of here quickly, or I'll be rude." Mo was stunned when he heard the words, and looked at Sanqian, meaning, what does this woman mean? Sanchin sighed, "She is threatening you." "What? Damn it. The mere monsters dare to threaten me." Mo burst into flames in an instant. "Don't you fucking know that anything is not allowed to become fine in Uncle Mo's territory?" "Yes, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." The woman knelt down instantly and touched the ground with her hands when she saw that the great demon king who threw herself away was furious. The sudden reversal made Mo a little overwhelmed. Why didn't let Kai threaten me? Why is he kneeling now? Just as Mo was stunned for a moment, the corner of the woman's mouth twitched, and she sneered as her conspiracy succeeded. Lulu ground wave. The woman's hands emit a strange ability. From the woman's hand, the earth becomes soft like the waves, and the ripples spread. Huh, what is this? Mo asked curiously as he watched the ground under his feet turn into waves and began to roll. At this moment, the woman had already stood up. Instead of the fear of death that she knelt down and begged for mercy, she had turned into a fang-toothed demon, with the arrogant appearance of a villain. "Ahaha, I'm a floating person who ate liu fruit. If you provoked me, just wait to be buried. Ha ha." Hearing the woman say that, Li Qia's eyes lit up. Floating person. It seems to be fun. Sanchin saw Mo's eyes lit up, and the secret path was not good. This guy has a habit of collecting, and he should keep any fun things by his side. Isn't Xiaodu Dingkumik an example? Sanchin was about to make a sound to stop it, but it was too late, only to see Mo raised his foot slightly and then fell suddenly. Boom. Following Li's stomping, and a loud noise that shook the entire island, the wave-shaped earth returned to calm. The woman who was still showing her teeth and claws and looking up at the sky just now stopped her frantic laughter, and she froze in place for a moment. I cursed in my heart, what kind of monster is this? Why is this monster in the East China Sea? Hee hee. Mo looked at the woman's eyes instantly turned evil. Hey, laughter struck the woman's heart like a demon. Boom. Kneeled down again. There is a saying that a good girl doesn't suffer immediate losses, and she knows she can't beat her, so why be tough? Looking at Mo's wicked smile, and then at the shivering woman kneeling on the ground, 3,000 helplessly held her forehead. It's over. The enemy has increased again. The most calm is Mayor Kunu, because he has been frightened and fell to the ground in a daze. What is this? A demon-like woman, who subdued the demon Li, is the power of that foot that a human can sit on. Li Mo walked in front of the woman, touched the stubble of his chin, and asked, "What's your name?" My name is Jimmy, I came from the Great Root, and I am a mobile person who ate the fruit of the flow. This volcanic island has many gems, so I am here. Jimmy knelt on the ground and whispered. Why are you looking for gems? Li Kie asked. Change money and save enough money to find a peaceful and comfortable island to live in, said Geely. Confidant. This woman's ideal is exactly the same as her own. Molly excitedly said, you follow me. Let's make money together. My salary is very high now. There is 1,000,000 Baileys. When we save 1,000,000,000 Baileys, we will all enjoy life. Sanchin's face is as cold as ice. What do you mean by following me? What is saving money together? What do you mean by enjoying life together? Molly tilde. Molly was excited when he suddenly heard Sanchian calling him behind him. He turned around and replied, why? Armed. Cover. You give me death. Chapter 39. Partners and Burning Fruits 1. There is an island far to the west of Benos Island. It is called, the ant nest hell of the sea, by the world. The island is surrounded by a special whirlpool current, and all those who approach will be involved in it and cannot escape. On the rock of the beach, a man with a half mask was sitting, facing the strange ocean current. His face was full of despair. This man named Deus, who has been inspired to become an adventure storyteller, since he was a child, is about to record his final despair and devotion to his dream. The trembling hand couldn't put the pen down. He threw the pen into the sea fiercely, and pressed his forehead angrily. He didn't want to die, he still had dreams. Boom! Suddenly, a boat full of repair marks flew out of the current and smashed into the beach. Do not. It wasn't smashed, it was carried onto the beach. Wow, the beach here is great, it looks like it's suitable for going to sea. Deuce took a closer look and saw that the man had black hair, freckles on both cheeks, an orange cowboy hat, 2 badges, one for happiness and one for sadness, a red bead chain around his neck, and torn sleeves. Deuce murmured, could he be caught in the current? When Ace saw someone on the beach, he went over to say hello to Deus. Hi, hello. Deuce was stunned for a moment, and quickly responded politely, hello. Are you also swept in by the waves? Ace asked. Yes. I'm trapped here. Deuce returned lonely. Ace suddenly laughed and said, haha, the first time I went to sea, I was involved here. Hearing Ace say this, Deus's last hope was shattered. He originally hoped that the man in front of him would take her out. Looking at it in this way, they traveled alone in distress and instantly became a duo. Ace looked at the boat he brought from the windmill village in embarrassment. It needed materials to repair it if it was broken. Well, is there any material to repair the ship on the island? Ace asked. No, Deus said weakly, and then added, material is not the most important thing. The most difficult thing is the weird currents around the island. We can't get out with our boats alone. Before Deuce could finish speaking, Ace, who was in a hurry to repair the ship, ran away with Deuce until he reached the other side of the island. The bay is covered by the rocky boulders, and the sun shines through the gaps in the boulders, illuminating the entire cave. Countless shipwrecks are hoarded here, and countless ships have been smashed and sunk here. Deus was amazed. So there is such a place on this island. Ace held on to the cowboy hat, grinned, and pointed to one place. Look there. Deuce looked in the direction of his fingers and was stunned. It was a giant dragon-headed battleship, with a rotten giant sword inserted on the bow deck. The passage of time, the waves and the sea wind eroded the wooden hull, but they could not take away the battle scars and the heroic fighting spirit. The rusted and broken giant sword seemed to tell the two of the glory of the past. Deus exclaimed, this is not an ordinary ship, is it a giant ship? Ace looked at Deuce in a daze and suddenly asked, by the way, I haven't asked your name yet. Makino said, be polite and be an example to your younger brother. Deuce was stunned for a moment, but did not answer. He abandoned his real name and real face, and chose to wear a mask. He said softly, I think of a nice pen name. Ace shrugged with a smile and didn't ask any more. The two began to collect the materials needed to repair the boat. That night, a bonfire was lit on the beach, and Deuce put the planks into the fire to bake. Ace was startled. Why did he burn the materials he finally collected? He quickly asked, why burn the wood? Deuce said with a smile, baking the wood until it chars in this way increases the water resistance and durability of the wood. Oh, that's it. You are really amazing and know a lot. Ace stared blankly at Deuce's divine operation, adoring his heart. Unfortunately, no food was found. Deuce whispered. Deus, who had not eaten for a long time, had been pushed to the brink of collapse by hunger. Ace was silent for a moment after hearing the words, then said with a smile, when we go out, let's have a big meal. Deuce looked at the man in front of him. He was in this situation, why was he always able to laugh? Although Deuce didn't understand why Ace was still able to laugh, he was also infected by his smile. For the time being, he didn't think about starvation and concentrated on burning the wood. Ace watched Deuce burn the planks one by one, and he couldn't help asking about his past. Deuce, who has read many logbooks and ship designs since he was a child, was deeply attracted by the giants and little people written in the book. He dreamed of going on an adventure at sea all day long, but was laughed at by those around him, saying he was a naive and a liar. Ace said suddenly and earnestly, perhaps, walking and walking, I ran into it. Deuce stared at Ace in a daze, his eyes full of sincerity. Ace smiled and told Zeus about the stories Garp told him. There were terrifying guys who were bigger than the giants, there were little human elves who ran fast but were very powerful, and there was a man called the Longhands. Humans, whose hands are longer than a human body, and Murlocs, who live 10,000 meters under the sea. Deuce smiled and watched Ace dance and tell stories to himself. He was silent, but he was very grateful. This guy was different from them. For the next 3 days, the two men relied on the remaining fresh water to repair the boat frantically. Seeing that the boat was about to be built, hunger still disintegrated their will. Deuce felt that he couldn't hold it any longer. He leaned desperately under the tree, staring at the blue sky with deadly eyes. Ace was always beside him, but he was never tired, beating the boat all the time. Ding, 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 ding. A sound of knocking came into the exhausted Deuce's heart. Deus turned his head to look at Ace. What an unrepentant guy. He smiled, stood up again, and went to get the plank. 2 more days passed. The black clouds rolled in the sky, and the thunder was thundering. The strange currents on the sea were even more turbulent. In an instant, a huge wind roared and poured rain. Protect our boat. Deuce looked at the wooden boat under the tree and shouted to Ace, who ran from a distance holding the wooden board. And he used all his strength to drag the boat into the woods, hoping that the trees could block the strong wind. Ace threw the plank away and ran to the boat at full speed. But the two had been hungry for nearly 10 days, and there was still strength there. Ace was extremely difficult to run against the wind, and Deus tried to drag the boat, but the boat did not move. A gust of wind hit and shattered the tree, and the trunk smashed hard on the small canoe that carried the hope of the two of them. Boom! The wooden boat was smashed to pieces. Ace fell on the mountain road, and Deus stared blankly at the wooden boat that was broken into pieces under the trunk. The storm shattered Deus' last hope. After the storm, the two stared blankly at the broken boat. Ace stood up again and exclaimed, "Let's make another boat." After speaking, he walked to the other side of the island. Deuce collapsed completely. The eyes under the mask turned from despair to madness. He suddenly turned his head and stared at Ace's back. His mad eyes were full of scarlet bloodshots, and he roared. "Doing it once. There's another time there. I'm running out of energy. I'm not like you. I haven't eaten anything." Ace stopped and turned his head slightly. He looked at Deuce with sunken eyes, and said solemnly, "Hey, what are you talking about?" Chapter 40, Partners and Burning Fruits 2. Deuce grabbed a piece of wood that he had calcined, took a step forward and grabbed Ace's collar, looking at Ace's indifferent eyes angrily and said angrily, "Those boats are all overturned, we are the only two on this island. Personally, it's not you. Who is it?" Ace stood silently, while Deus grabbed his collar and tore it. His eyes turned to the wooden board in Deus's hand, and he said softly, "This wooden board is an important part of our ship." "Don't say these nonsense words." Deus lifted the wooden board, venting all his anger on the man who deceived him. Bang! The board slammed hard on Ace's head, and the cowboy hat was knocked off on the beach. "The planks are broken." Ace quietly watched Deus run towards the cave like a madman, then bent over to pick up the cowboy hat and put it firmly on his head. Dan's gift must not be lost. Deus knelt in the cave in the mountain stream, smashing the rocks under his knees frantically. The most important books to him were scattered all over the place. He hated his gullibility of that person. He clutched his chest hard. It turned out to be betrayal, is what it feels like. Why are you lying to me? Heartbreaking, screaming in pain, venting his emotions. Boom! Snapped. The sudden falling of the rock above the cave interrupted Deus's sad thoughts and aroused his alarm. Deus looked up, and a monster giant bird stared at him. The eyes of the giant bird were full of violence and hunger. Boo! The giant bird let out a sharp whistle, and its huge body smashed the entire cave into pieces, swooping down rapidly, and its huge sharp beak rushed straight towards Deus. Deus turned and ran away, almost dodging. At the same time, he regretted it a lot. It turned out that there were animals on the island, not just two people. The warehouses and cabins that were overturned were not overturned by Ace. The giant bird was in hot pursuit, and Deus accidentally fell onto the deck of the giant ship. He looked down at the giant sword that covered the sky and looked down at him, as if he was already a little bug in his mouth. At this moment, he burst into tears, and there was no fear in his heart. Some only doubted the shame of his friend and his apology to Ace. The friendship that he had easily let down turned into hot tears with countless regrets. He was lying on the deck, waiting for the devourer of the giant bird. That guy didn't laugh at me. That guy said he was a terrifying guy that was bigger than the giants. I really wanted to meet him. Just as Deus was about to be swallowed by the giant bird, an angry roar resounded through the cave. Ah! Ace pulled up the rotten giant sword inserted in the bow, as if a divine weapon had descended from the sky. The giant sword cut through the despair shrouded in the dark night of Deus. Boom! The rotten greatsword completed its final mission, turning into dust fragments, and the giant bird was smashed into the air, smashing the mast of the greatsword. Ace fell to the ground, threw the hilt of his sword, rushed up and punched the belly of the giant bird, severely injuring the belly of the giant bird. Ace's two blows and severe pain completely angered this giant bird monster, which stood on the deck with its huge wings spread out, covering the sky and the sun. Boo! The giant bird roared, vowing to devour the two, and it was ready to attack. Ace stood in front of Deus, facing this ancient beast. He did not retreat. Eyes like torches, fearless. Ace looked up, just a glance. The overlord wealth captured the soul, and Ace's eyes seemed to contain an infinite divine edge, and an imposing aura exploded instantly to shock the giant bird. The giant bird's nystagmus trembled, took a few steps back unconsciously, fluttered its wings, and flew away in embarrassment. The giant bird flew away, and the crisis was lifted. The rock that was smashed by the giant bird shone on the man's shoulders through more sunlight. Deus, who fell to the ground, stared blankly at the man standing in front of him as warm as a flame. Just as Deus was about to apologize for the things he blamed on him, Ace was the first to speak. You're not wrong. I have been a habitual criminal who likes to eat overlord meals since I was a child. The three of us like to pretend to be adults and then run away from the window. You have such doubts, and you should. But if you die in despair like that, you will have regrets. Why not try it hard? Deus was fascinated by the arrogance of the man in front of him. Boom! Suddenly Ace fell, and Deus was shocked. Yes, he hadn't eaten at all. Deus hurriedly rummaged for the thing spit out from the giant bird's mouth. Nautical chart, treasure, gold coins, crown. It was not edible, so Deus opened another wooden box, and there was actually a fruit in it. I saw the round fruit. The orange peel was hot like fire, as if surrounded by countless groups of flames. Deuce looked at the fruit carefully. The flame pattern seemed to have infinite magic, attracting him. Deuce murmured, "Eat it and maybe survive." Deuce crawled to Ace, helped Ace, and stuffed the fruit into his mouth. "No, you eat it." Ace pushed the fruit back. "You bastard. Eat it for me." Deuce pushed the fruit hard. "You eat. I'm not hungry." "Stop lying, you freckled bastard." "You ate him, mask bastard." The two are humble to each other, and both want to give each other the chance to live. Suddenly Ace laughed. "You brave guy." When the voice fell, Ace broke the fruit and divided it into two. Two men were sitting on the deck, each holding half a fruit, and this fruit was the new vitality for the two of them. Ace was so hungry that he devoured it without hesitation, eating half of the fruit in a few bites. Yuck. After retching a few times, Ace felt that the fruit was extremely unpalatable, but it was finally eaten, and filling the stomach was the most important thing. "Huh, why don't you eat it?" Ace turned to look at Deuce holding the half of the fruit and didn't eat it. Deuce held half of the fruit and said angrily, "When I faced death just now, I still regretted it." He looked at Ace in front of him with tears in his eyes. "I regret doubting you, I regret that I abandoned our friendship. I have decided, I will work hard to the last moment of my life. Escape from this island with you." After he finished speaking, he ate. "I'm going to write the best adventure story. I'm going to help you escape from this island. Please let me help you build a ship." Before he finished speaking, he was surprised to find the gas flames on Ace. Ace, however, stood silently like nothing else, and he didn't react at all when he became a man on fire. I saw Ace standing up gently, facing the position of the dragon head of the giant ship, and reaching out with a finger. The flame shock wave instantly burst, breaking the huge dragon head. Ace seemed to have understood something. He muttered to himself, "I have a younger brother who ate something called a devil fruit and turned into a rubber man, and mine seems to be the power of fire." Ace once again stimulated the power of physical strength, and countless fiery flames instantly engulfed it, and countless beating flame spirits were enthusiastically surrounding their new master. Ace stared at his flame arm in awe, and said, "It seems that it is more suitable for fighting than rubber." Deus was stunned when he saw Ace, who was covered in flames. When the devil fruit was eaten for the first time, it would give the power cursed by the devil, and the rest were just ordinary unpalatable fruits. Deuce saw that Ace, who had become a fireman, suddenly had an epiphany, and flames were an excellent source of power. The two teenagers rekindled their hopes. They turned the dragon head of the battleship over. Deuce drew the design of the ship, replacing the oar with the outer wheel. Soon, Ace's charger was born. On a sunny morning, the two finally set foot on the charger at the end of their lives. The raging flames under Ace's feet seemed to have injected soul into the charger. Ace laughed and said, "Quickly wave goodbye to this island, he will soon disappear into the horizon of the sky." Deus got on the boat and said with a smile, "It's really an island full of memories." Crimson flames burst out, and the charger rushed out of the waves like a flaming arrow, heading towards the boundless blue sky. Ride the wind and waves, fearlessly charge. The young man flew like a fire with high spirits. The two rushed out of the weird ocean currents surrounding the island in an instant, and before Deuce celebrated the success of their escape, they only heard a scream in the air. Boo! The giant bird defeated by Ace came out of its nest, and dozens of giant birds hovered in the sky above the two of them, like a haze and black cloud shrouded in the sky. This time, their prey was at sea. Deuce panicked, and there was no way to avoid it at sea. Ace's fighting spirit was boiling, he couldn't hold it anymore, and grinned excitedly. "Stinky bird, do you think you can eat us when we are at sea?" Ace clenched his fists tightly, and a fiery orange-red flame ignited on his right fist. When he was ready to fight, he was about to have a good fight with these giant bird monsters. Deus was shocked and stopped. "Ace, you are a landlubber. What if you fall into the sea?" But Ace didn't seem to be worried at all. He said with a smile, "When the time comes, won't you still be there? Meeting on such a magical island, the fate between us is not shallow." Come on board my boat together. Let's go together, Summit. Seeing that the sharp beak of the giant bird is about to tear the two of them apart, this man is still inviting his companions to become pirates. Ace ignored Deuce, surprise, but muttered to himself, I didn't expect to meet my first partner in such a place. This is really a memorable sailing. How can it be less gorgeous? Fire fist. A roar resounded through the sky, shaking the world. On the man's fist, the flaming lotus blossoms burst into endless fiery heat, turning into a flaming dragon and galloping freely in the sky. Burn the giant bird monsters that fill the sky, the screaming monsters, and burn them to pieces. The whole sea reverberated with the fiery and domineering arrogance of the man surrounded by flames. He is proclaiming to the whole world. Fire fist, Ace, set sail. Ace's all-out blow destroyed the ant nest hell. Seeing that he lost his balance, he was about to fall into the sea. Snapped. Is firmly grasped by one hand. Pirates, interesting, my name is Deus, please let me assist you. The Spade Pirates are officially established.